first and foremost, Mr. Harrell, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to call me and go through all this back and forth. And then with the weather that had rolled through here the past day and a half, I guess you can say, um, making sure that everything was all good. So I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I do. After listening to a few of your episodes, and I got to say, I hadn't listened to all of them, but I have listened to quite a few. I listened to James's, and he told me about his experience. And as I told you when we first talked, I've actually turned down every request for podcasts. Not like I've got a lot, but I have got more than a couple, and I've typically turned them all down. But after talking to James and seeing what y'all do, seems like you do a good job. I like what you said, the whole scope and what we're going to do here tonight. So I agreed to come on. So this is my first podcast.
We are excited and thrilled to get into the history of everything of your whole career in racing. So like I said, we greatly appreciate it for sure.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me on.
So going back to the very, very beginning, when was your first experience getting in the deep end of the pool with racing?
It would have to be about when I was 10 years old. I was in 1980. When I was growing up, I grew up on a farm, and my parents would never let me have a go-kart. I could have motorcycles, but I couldn't have a go-kart because we had a lot of barbed wire fences. And they always said, you'll cut your head off. You'll run through the fence and you'll cut your head off. My dad, he had raced whenever he was younger. He was into micros. He and his brothers up here in Mooresville around that area. I was actually born and raised in Camden, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
The way that happened, my dad, he was in the same business. He was a well driller, and he was in the same business as his dad. And he ended up moving to South Carolina so that he didn't have to do business directly against his father. So I was born and raised down in Camden. And my first experience with karting was when I was about the age of 10, which my dad decided to get me involved in racing. I wanted to do something. So we, some local guys there in town had some go-karts, Ed John Coughlin, Bobby Grizz Mosley, and some of the others. They used to hang out up at the service station, and ended up buying my first used kart from Frank Rabin Jr. Couldn't race it because it was two-stroke. We didn't know any better, but we needed a four-cycle. But so I got started at the age of 10. Those guys kind of pointed me in a direction. I started racing. My first race was at North 15 Cartway in Hartsville, South Carolina.
Okay, I got you. That was with the people that got you in. That was kind of who guided you through the beginning of your career, or did you kind of latch on to other people as you kind of got to the racetrack?
Well, no, I mean, in the beginning, the first few years, they guided me. I was just a kid, we were just learning. It was just a local track, like I say, down there in Hartsville and around Hartsville, Darlington, down in that area is where I kind of first got started. And then as I got older, I started racing up around Indian Land and, all over South Carolina, started racing some of the South Carolina Dirt Series. Those guys I mentioned got me started. And then probably the first ones that actually started kind of molding me was like people like Terry Benfield,
Mm-hmm.
of Benfield Cams. He was in Gibson, North Carolina. My dad used to race around some with his dad, George Benfield. He was the first one to invent a cam grinder to grind small engine cams, so I'm told. But him, Robert Stanton, Charlie Sox. We bought some stuff from Charlie Sox whenever I was young. I think probably my first. Well, not my first new go kart. My dad actually got a new Black Widow when Charlie was selling bug products, and I ended up with that kart after my dad quit. That was probably the first newer kart that I had, and just kept growing from there.
Yeah,
racing down that way.
And it's Indian Creek, right? It's Indian, or what was it? What was the racetrack?
Indian Land.
Indian Land. Yeah. Okay. So that thing has been mentioned a lot here recently, and that was if you wanted to see what you got, we went over there, and you went see what you had over there.
Yeah, Indian Land down next a little south of Charlotte on 521. that place used to pack a crowd. I mean, there would be spectator cars backed out on the 4 lane there. That track would pack out. I mean, myself, Stevie Stevenson, David Thunderberg, the three boys, there's just tons of them that raced down there at the time. Jody Jolly, you know, I mean, we used to put on a pretty good show there. It was through the 80s, the middle 80s, late 80s. That was the place to be.
Yeah, for sure. I remember there was a few people just talking about it, and it's cool to hear about those old racetracks that aren't with us anymore, and I still kind of get that documentary, the history kind of talked about.
Yeah, I think Phil went by there a few years ago. I think he actually got run off. He was in there taking some, trying to take some pictures and stuff.
Oh boy.
wanting to leave, but yeah, that was some good times then.
So, you started when you were 10. What, what when did you decide that kart racing was where you wanted to be? So, when you think about it nowadays, it's like you got to start when you're 3 or 4 years old. But, you started at 10. Like, when did it click? Like, this was what I want to do.
It was pretty on my honest, pretty soon after I started. I mean, it's probably I was 12 or 13. I got a really good, I mean, I got a pretty good hold on it. And by the time I turned 15 or so, I had a couple of offers to drive a car to. I mean, it was nothing, anywhere I could go. Just some guys that had raced karts and then got over into racing cars. And I said, "You want to drive this?" And it never really enthused me because I kind of knew early on that I could become somebody in the sport of karting, but aside from that, I didn't really think I could become. And I realized that real early on, and I began to become drawn to the mechanical side of stuff. I mean, I started working, for my dad, and I started, being an adult really when I was as young as 13. I mean, I started drilling wells when I was 13, 14 years old. I mean, my dad put me to work. Yeah. So, I started, so I started to become drawn to the mechanical side of stuff. And, I felt like that I could really do the karting thing, and my family and by the resources we had, that I could do that. But now, mind you, I was in South Carolina. I wasn't here in North Carolina. The town I was in down there in Camden is a horse town. I mean, there was ourselves and a few people that I mentioned that got me started, and that was it. Everybody else thought we were crazy messing around with go-karts instead of, down there everybody was riding horses. That's not what I mean. We had horses, but I didn't go into the sport of it.
Yeah. And so that kind of runs into, our next thing. You were already around the welding, the tubes, the bending, everything like that. You kind of understood what it took to put pieces together.
Well, now my dad was in the well drilling, not welding.
Well. Okay. There we go. That makes sense.
Yeah. He, like I say, his father and his father before him were all well drillers. Again, from Mooresville, North Carolina, up here. And I had, we were moved down. I was moved down there. My family moved down there and had me. I was supposed to have been a fourth generation welder. I didn't follow suit, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. It kind of ties in a little later, but no, it wasn't welding. It was well drilling. I ran a big rig and drilled a hole in the ground and got muddy and nasty and dirty every day.
Yeah,
and trying to get people water for their houses and such.
Gotcha.
Now, so it's an iconic name for our sport. But where did the name come from? Like the origin of Phantom Racing Chassis?
A lot of people ask me that, and I don't. The only thing I mean, there is no great story of where Phantom came from. I do remember back early on, I had the idea that I wanted, once I started making some parts, that I wanted to possibly tie the thing together in a brand, so to speak, and then I wanted to try to make the fuel tanks. Back then, we ran aluminum tanks. That was before plastic. I wanted to make a fuel tank look like a tombstone, and so from that, we got to talking and came up with Phantom. They kind of work hand in hand together. That's as much as I can remember about it. I mean, I don't really know when it actually hit, when it actually clicked. It's just, that's as much as I can remember about
It
origin.
just accidentally became one of the greatest names in karting, you know?
It did. Well, possibly, but I will say this, and this is something that is big. I don't still have it, but the original OG Phantom logo with the Reaper guy that we're actually going back to from time to time. That was actually given to me early on from a young customer. I do not remember who it was. At that time, I never thought it was going to be that big of a deal. But it was a pencil drawing on a sheet of note, and it was awesome. This young man had drawn it and gave it to me, and I kept it for several years. I finally lost it, or I lost possession of it by the time we had moved up here to North Carolina. I sent it to a company called Duck Graphics to do our first, shirts that had a logo or something on it, or I think it's hats. And I never got it back. And out of everything today, if I could go back, I would probably pay a stupid amount of money for that drawing if it was still around. But I'm sure it probably got tossed in the trash can. But the logo came from a young customer that just drew it and handed it to me.
Yeah, that'd be definitely a cool piece hung up in a picture frame or something for sure. So if you're listening, if you got it, get it back to Mr. Harrill.
Well, we talked about you said you really, really like the mechanical side of things growing up. Where did the itch for manufacturing come from, and when did that translate into creating a chassis?
I was in my middle teens, 16, 17. I think my history's out there. I built my first go-kart by the time I was about 16, 17. Actually, I have those karts. Maybe you want to see them? They're in the showroom. I still have the very first 2 karts I ever made.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
I would love to see that for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the Phantoms, but these out here, if I can flip this camera around, I got to turn a light on. These out here are actually before the name Phantom. These were kind of long in the time where we didn't know what we're calling.
So that's serial number 001 and 002, correct?
Yeah, and I didn't even know I really had these things until, these are in the showroom here at Phantom.
That's crazy.
Whoa,
man!
Here's the front door. This is the first one, and that's the second.
That's crazy.
This one here, I want you to notice something. Look at this. Look at this geometry, the spindles. It's got adjustable caster on the very first one.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that was what, mid-80s?
Yes, that was like 87.
Gotcha.
87.
Yeah,
this one too. And then something else, and this kind of shows that we didn't design it. Check this out. Clamshell cassette.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, golly, that was definitely ahead of its time.
Those do not have wear rings, and they don't have some of the adjustability we have in them today. But that's actually some stuff that come off European karts way back in the day. So we didn't actually, invent that. But this kart right here, the first time I raced it, it's got steel Nerf bars on it now. But of course, I drove this one. The first time I raced it, I run it down at Moncks Corner, South Carolina, and I come up with the bright idea I was going to put aluminum Nerf bars on it. Well, I didn't know any better. And the aluminum that I chose at the time, I mean, again, I was a teenager, I didn't know any better. It was not very weldable. It wasn't, I wasn't that good at welding. The first time I raced it, both Nerf bars fell off while I was driving. I had to, after the race, there's some of the old timers tell the story. They said that, after he won the race, I think I won the race. But anyway, they tell the story. They say after he won the race, he had to go around and pick up all the junk that fell off the cart. But it's true. I did. They broke off, and then like I say, I had to come back and weld steel ones on. As you can see, it's got a little third. It's a third member there.
Yeah,
they're on.
It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't going in.
Right.
So, and did you hold on to those? Or, I mean, obviously you didn't. I mean, I'm sure at that time you didn't think it would go to where it was, but what it is now. But did you hold on to them and found them in the shop when you were cleaning stuff out, or?
Kinda. When after we had moved back up here to North Carolina, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. We sold my family sold our house in South Carolina to my brother and sister-in-law, my wife's sister and her brother-in-law, her husband. And he was cleaning out an old barn that we had down there, and he called up one day. This is many years after we had moved up here, and he said, "Hey, I found these 2 go-karts. Do you want them?" And at first I said no. I didn't know what they were. And then I got to thinking, I said, "Well, tell me about them." I think he took a picture or something and mailed it to me, or I don't even know if he had emailed it or not, but he sent it to me. And I said, "Oh, yes." I didn't even know I still had those. I said, "Yes, I want them." So, so I went and got them. And after I got them, I said, "These are the first 2." So you know, I wish that pencil drawing would show up like that. But
Yeah, for sure.
that's the building right there. My daughter did this, trying to get the player.
That's so
You
cool.
can see that's the first shop we started in South Carolina. My daughter did this picture for me some years ago. The only thing she did wrong is she didn't scale it right. That picture on the top is the first shop. It's about the size of the showroom I'm standing in. It's about 8,900 square feet. It's not very big at all.
Yes.
It looks as big as this one. The one on the bottom is the shop now. That's 15,000 square feet. But
Yeah.
That's the original shop we started in.
Yeah, so let's talk about the first shop. Is over in South Carolina. That's officially where Phantom started, correct?
Yes, that's where I built my first cars. It
Yeah.
is.
So what
uh,
was that like? Getting everything started. You said 800 square feet. That's not a lot of room. That's a garage at most.
It is. It was a little building. It was a building my dad had moved in, and had a floor in it, had a wood floor, so it was elevated. It wasn't like a concrete floor in the front part. Then we added a little lean-to on the back of it and closed it in and put a little sliding wood door on it. And so I had one area down in the bottom is where I kind of built the engines and all. And when I first started, the first thing I started doing was building engines. And we'll talk a little bit later about Scotty Cagle and some other people that y'all had mentioned before we got here. But that back then I used to be called Engines by Wiggy Baby.
Okay.
But so I did that in that little shop, and then then started wanting to build some carts. So the first thing I did is I started cutting up some perfectly good carts. I used to have some Coyotes and different stuff, Mark A's. So I said, well, I'll cut them up and change them. And so I did that, and I basically messed up some good go karts.
You gotta check them out to learn how to get what you want out of it, though. But so 1989 comes around. Phantom has officially started, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So 1989 rolls around, and then still straight railed. But what was that? What was the feedback like? From customers. Tony Belk, Scotty Cagle, like we talked about. Rusty Jones, stuff like that. What was that like, understanding, like getting feedback from people as you're trying to build a go-kart?
I mean, we just raced, man. We were just digging and going and racing and trying to win whatever was available. And Scotty Cagle was one of the early ones that came on board. I didn't get hooked up with Tony Belk until we moved to North Carolina, which happened in 91, 92. But down there in South Carolina, it was like you say, Scotty Cagle and Rusty Jones. Scotty and I were really good friends. I used to race with Scotty back. Scotty was one of my mentors whenever I was young. He was a little older than me, even before I started building go karts. He kind of took me under his wing for a little bit. He and his dad, Buckshot Cagle, they built a few engines for me, and we raced down there at their racetrack in Hemingway, South Carolina, and got to be real good friends with their family and all. And we raced, and Scotty, once I started building carts, Scotty was one of the ones, even though he was one of the top racers at the time, he took a chance on me, and he came and rode some stuff, and he'd just tell me straight up, he'd say, he called me Wiggy Baby. He's the one that gave me the name Wiggy Baby. And it's a Wiggy Baby, that's a good one there. That thing will turn, it'll turn. And then when it wasn't, he's a Wiggy Baby, I can't make that thing go now. You're gonna have to work on it. He was something. But the one thing, and I'll tell you this, this is pretty crucial. Back then, it was Phantom Karts.
Okay.
Scotty Cagle was the one that insisted it be Phantom racing chassis. And he used to, when he would win, he would do his interview, and he would say Phantom racing chassis. He'd say, these Phantom racing chassis, getting it done. He would always have a line of BS, to go with his win. And I would tell him, I said, Scott, and I mean, I had hats at the time that had Phantom Karts on them, and he would say, you don't want to call them Phantom Karts. This is bigger than that. You need to call them Phantom racing chassis. You need to call them racing chassis. It sounds better. It's more marketable. And so now we got Phantom racing chassis.
There we
I
go.
mean,
That's awesome.
PRC does roll off the tongue quite well.
Yeah.
Well, I can honestly thank Scotty for that. He gave me my nickname Wiggy Baby that stuck with me for a long time, and then he did put the racing chassis in Phantom.
For sure. Yeah, I guess you could say, I mean, because like when you look at the European side, you have like Tony Karts, and so it's all like something karts. And is that where that came from? Not thinking about the racing chassis side.
It is, and you had Margay Karts and Trick Karts and all of them, that was already in place back then. And so I was just Phantom Karts, but Scotty insisted. I mean, we had couple conversations about it, and he would, and then I don't know, one day it just, I mean, I guess he taught me into it.
Yeah.
and I'm glad he did, because today, we do more than just karts, and I think it helps attract some of the business that we've been able to get.
For sure, it definitely broadens the horizon.
So I know you do. I know. I apologize. Oof. I know James has brought back some of the retro apparel. What would it be to get one of the original Phantom Karts designs on a hat?
We could do it. I tell you, I saw a couple people post a few pictures of hats. James Moore, I think I saw him have one, and then there was someone else, Brian. Oh my goodness, I can't think of his first name. Down in South Carolina, he's a long time diehard customer. See, I told you before we started this, I can't remember names. Brian, I can't remember his first name. I know I see his face as good as mine. Brian. I'll think of it in a little bit. And I'll tell you who it is. But anyway, I saw they put some pictures up a year or two ago with some hats that they found that they still had at back when Tony Flowers and all those down in there were dealers. And it's, so to answer your question, we could do it. We could do it.
Little throwback time.
I'd be probably order number one on that one.
It was a block. It was they were fluorescent colors, and it was a block Phantom text. I got any Phantom, the OG Phantom stickers here. I find one here somewhere. Let me keep looking. We'll keep talking. There's some drawers back here by my mom. I think I seen some old school Phantom decals, and all it was that decal on a hat. It was reverse font. It had like a bar, and then the Phantom was cut out in it, and just on the hat. I'll find one short. Anyway, y'all go ahead and keep talking.
So we just talked about the beginning, but from employees to customers, who were some of the people that were influential and part of the original PRC family?
We've already talked about Scotty and those guys. Jamie Weatherford. I'm gonna tell a quick story about him. He rode our karts for a while in the beginning down in South Carolina, and then after this story about Jamie, we're gonna switch to everything being in North Carolina. Jamie rode for me for a while, or he rode my stuff for a while. Jamie was like Scotty. He had the gift of gab. He could sell ice to Eskimos and socks for Ruth. We go off down to Horace's one night. This is something I remember a good bit. It's a little old track down in the low country of South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Real popular at the time. There were a lot of modifieds, and all Jamie drove modifieds. Well, see, back then, I was building the go-karts and I was building the engines too at that time. And I was a one-man band. we loaded up. We go down there. Jamie had sold a couple of carts to a couple of guys down there, so I had managed to piece together a couple go karts, and then we had a couple carts that we raced. We had some engines and different stuff. We went down there that night and raced, and I don't remember all the details about the night, but I do know that we pretty well mopped up. By the time the night was over, Jamie had sold everything we had. I came home with an empty trailer, pocket full of money, and he sold the carts that we had to take to sell. He sold the stuff that we rode. He sold the spare stuff we had in the trailer. We were literally empty. We loaded up. We come home with cart stands and toolbox. That's all we had.
And a pocket full of money. That's good for business.
And I thought that was great until I got home and realized, you fool, now you got to rebuild it all before you can go racing again.
Yeah, you're not racing for another month now.
By yourself. So that that was a lesson learned. But aside from him, once we got moved up here to North Carolina, and we can hit a little bit more on that. But basically, my dad's the economy fell bad with my dad's his dad's well drilling business. My dad's well drilling business. By this time, his father had passed away, so we moved back to the Wiggins home place in Mooresville, which is on Wiggins Road. And that's whenever I met Tony Belk, and actually I met Tony's father-in-law first. He was very instrumental. His name is Durrell Walters, and he did a lot for me. And so it's hard for me to talk about Durrell because he did so much, and he's not with me anymore. But the first time he came in my shop, he kind of offended me because he was so bold. And he walked around and he looked, and I was in a little shop. It was a little bit. It was probably 2,000 square feet. And of course, I'm in there, me and a couple guys trying to do it ourselves. And I needed, I was looking for somebody to build me a spindle fixture because I needed to build spindles better and faster. So what I had just wouldn't work. And he walks in and he looks around, he sees what we're doing, and he's just asking all these questions, and he's looking at stuff and he's picking up stuff. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is coming here? Well, he talked to me a while, and then he told me, I might help you with the spindle fixture. What you need is a bender. Well, I know, but I said, I can't afford a bender. And I said, I had a little old hand bender. I still got it. It's a little old ratchet style hand bender. I won't sell it because it's part of the history. Mm-hmm. But he said, you need a bender. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have the money I can't buy a bender. He's like, well, I can build you one. I said, okay, well, I thought he was full of bull, Mm-hmm. Well, he got to telling me that he had done stuff like that, and he worked at Philip Morris. Long story short, not only did he build me a bender, he actually got all the supplies to build it with. I was trying to remember before we came on here. I remember I had to buy one thing. There was only one piece of the bender he could not get from work, and he used to get it out of scrap. He would get stuff out of scrap in Philip Morris. He built this whole bender. I still got it. I'm gonna go show it. But anyway, out of the whole thing, I only had to buy one piece, and it was like less than $50 for this whole bender.
It's crazy.
And he built that bender for me, and he became. I got to turn the lights on back here. And that's what got us started. And he went on later and built our spindle fixtures, but he built this bender right here. We still use it. We actually still make the loop rear bumpers.
That's cool.
He got the hydraulic cylinder out. He got scrap passes for it. The micro switches and such. I can't remember. There was one little thing I had to buy. He told me, he said, you're going to have to spend money on this. And then at one time we had a trolley down through here that we used to clamp the tubes in and index it. Mm-hmm. But we've taken some of the stuff off of it because we don't use it a whole lot, but it just clamps. And we've got a rotary here. Part of it's taken off. Actually, this actually bolts right here. When we could do multiple bends, mm-hmm. We'd set those stops, and it goes against that micro switch. And it worked. I mean, it worked. It did great. And Durrell made a tremendous tremendous difference in my life. Him, and then I hate to back up, but there was one other guy down in South Carolina when I built my first go-kart, the one I showed you out in the showroom.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Rebo, his name's Reggie Raymond. He passed away a few years ago. I went to him. This was, again, back in South Carolina. I apologize for backing up, but this was when I built kart number one. I knew I wanted to build it in a fixture, and I kind of knew kind of how I wanted to do it. But I didn't have any way of building a fixture, and I wanted to build it with clamps and cradles and stuff that I could hold everything the way it should be. And that's been a stickler of mine since day one, is I wanted to do it right. I want to do I want to do it to be consistent. I want to be able to control things. So I went to him and I wanted to build a fixture, and I said, but I need you to make me some parts. And again, I'm 16 or so at the time, and he talked to me about it, and I told him kind of what I had in mind, and he said, I'm not going to do it for you, or he said I'm not going to build you the parts. I said, well, okay. I thought that was a no. He said, I'll let you do it. He said, but I'm not going to do it. I said, well, I don't have anything to do it with. He said, you come over here, and he said, I'll teach you. He said, I'll teach you how to do the machining. And he said, you can make your own parts. He said, I'm not going to do it for you. He said, I'll help you get the stuff ordered. I'll help you get the setups. I'll teach you, and you do it yourself. So that's what he did. From over the next many months, I went over there and I would help him a little bit, and he ordered me up the material, and he would show me how to do it, and he would walk off. And I remember he would come back to me later, and I'm over here, drilling holes and, doing all the stuff that he's teaching me how to do. And he would look at the stuff when I get the parts now, because I just kind of drew them out on a piece of paper, kind of what I wanted to make. And he taught me how to do it. And he would come by and he would ask me, he'd say, now, Harrill, is this going to work? Oh yeah, it's going to work, Reggie. It's going to work, Reggie. He's like, all right. And he helped me get started. So you got Reggie, Rebo, and you got Durrell. Those two guys, what they did, I don't know that I'd ever got off the ground and got going if somebody, if God hadn't put them in my life.
For sure. That's one of those teach a man to fish, don't give him the fish kind of stories right there.
Yeah. Both of the, especially Reggie, he did teach me how to fish. And what little bit I know about machining, which I mean, I do some machining. Reggie taught me 90% of it.
Yeah. And so a lot happens between 89 and 94, from when you started to when you put out the Stalker in 94. So let's kind of go through that. You're trying to develop a new chassis and also move into a new shop. So let's start on the new shop. So you move shops from South Carolina to North Carolina, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so what was that like? What was that transition like? You're getting, I'm sure, more room. You're getting, there's more things. I'm sure there's more responsibilities with the bigger shop. And so what's going on with that?
There is, and then you got to have to remember too. This whole time, I'm still doing this kind of part time. I'm still working for my dad. I'm still drilling wells. I'm still during the day. I'm still running well machines. I didn't transition over to doing the go-karts full time until like 92. So everything up until about 92, I had to work for him every day. Starting in 92, I started transitioning out. But yeah, we had to move. I had to pack all that stuff up from South Carolina. I had to move up here. By this time, I had met my wife, Stacy. She was from Camden. I kind of left her behind for a while. She stayed down there for, again, we weren't married at that point, but we were dating, and, she was down there. So it was a long distance relationship. And, my dad, but when he moved back up to our home place, he moved up, like say a few years before I did. And he had built the shop over that's in Mooresville now, the one I was telling you about, a couple thousand square feet. He had built it, and I stayed behind because I had met Stacy and such, and I didn't want to come up here, and I thought I could make it down there. And they kept telling me, my mom and dad kept telling me, you need to move to Mooresville. Mooresville's a racing town. You need to get up here. Well, I finally moved, and he told me, he said, I built this shop, come move your stuff in it, help me during the day and build your go-karts at night and on weekends and when you can. See, I was actually, when I was still living in South Carolina and they were up here, I was driving. I would drive up here for like 3 days a week and drill wells and then drive back home and work on, work on carts down in South Carolina. Then we finally all got moved up here, and I started, building. We was already building straight rail Phantom, but that's what we originally, when we moved up here, that's what we were building at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fast paced life here, and then I didn't get a whole lot of sleep.
And so, as you're doing all that, you're also working on the Stalker, which has a pretty funny story from what I've heard. It almost didn't even see the light of day. And what's that about? I mean, it was a super successful go-kart, and so where were you at with that?
Well, I was against the whole offset movement.
Mhm.
We need to start looking at go-karts, don't
Yeah, we did.
we
Yeah.
do.
we? Got all these down here. This right here, this one's the original Phantom. Those who've been to the show, the office here know. Let me turn this fan off. This is the original Phantom. That's not one of. That is the original Phantom. That there's a picture right here. That picture right there, that's on the bumper, is this same go-kart when it was in the front of that building that I showed you out in the showroom, that first 900 square foot shop.
Yeah,
that's it. It's sitting in the front corner right there.
That's cool.
it's really
And that's the picture of it. I knew where this cart was, and I kept up with it, and I ended up getting it back. Taylor Overcash over in Troutman, North Carolina, he had it. He had bought it used. That cart was originally built when it was in that picture. It was built for a boy named Kobe Rabin. He was one of the early racers for us. His dad helped me out a lot too, just basically getting me back and forth to the racetrack, because I didn't have money to do for a whole lot of that stuff, because I was just trying to get the business going.
Yeah.
And built for him, and then he ended up selling it to, or I ended up selling it to Taylor in Troutman, and I got it back from him. But we also built a dual rail version of that. I got one of them here too. I hadn't hung it up. I think a guy came, sent me a message that he had it, sent me pictures of it. And I ended up buying it from him. This is the ones that Tony Belt used to ride a lot. When he first started riding, Tony won a lot of races on this.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool looking right there.
We ran those. That's whenever we tried to do we did do some Gold Cup racing. Andy Whitten and I think at that time maybe JT Stillwagon was riding some of the stuff too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Stillwagon started on a Phantom. But
that's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, he was with us for a while. Him and Andy Whitten and all. But anyway, the dual rail was my kind of take on trying not to do the offset thing, because CKI had came out with the offset. Well, what we call the offset now, their first one they came out with, it didn't look like an offset. They had a weight jacker built in on it. And the weight jacker, we didn't realize until later on. Robin Bradshaw was the mastermind behind that. I think he had the weight jacker in there as a disguise, because it was really an offset cart. I don't know if the weight jacker really done a whole lot. I think the weight jacker was more to disguise the fact that the cart was offset.
Just to get people talking, get people thinking.
To get people talking, get people thinking. Regardless of the fact, weight jacker faded. The first Stalker, like whenever we first made this cart here, I made two versions. And Durrell, the guy that built the bender, he was the one that pointed out the fact that he thought the weight jacker was a disguise. He said, you need to build one without all that mess on it. Just do it offset. Do it like this. So we built this exact cart right here, this one you see hanging here. And then we built another one that had a weight jacker over here on the left side, and the back was wider and all that stuff. And we took it to Carteret County, and Andy Whitten drove it. And we ended up testing it over the next little while. And then Durrell's brother, Tony Walter, that worked for me. Tony worked for me for 27 years. He just retired this past December.
Really?
We rode both of these. Andy and I took the one with the weight jacker, and Durrell and Tony took this one. And they started racing at Tyro in different places. And this one ended up working, and ours didn't. So it took several months for them to actually convince us of it. But then we ended up going with this design here, which is the Stalker. And this right here is Stalker number 1. So that's Phantom number 1 and Stalker number 1.
So you were more in favor of the weight jacker idea. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I didn't think the offset thing was what was doing it. I thought in the beginning it was still, you know, we still needed a more of an equally balanced car. I thought the offset stuff, loading up the left rear tire and all, it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Okay.
But between the two versions, yes, I originally tried to make the weight jacker version work, which ended up not.
Was it just offset being so new? Is just you didn't know if it was going to hang around, kind of deal?
I thought it was a fad.
Yeah,
I really did. I thought it would go away. Which hey, I was wrong.
I would say it never went away.
I was wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, the Stalker took off. People like Robbie Davis and, you know, like say Durrell Walter, and there's a whole plethora of others. You know, by this time, you know, we're in North Carolina here, and they're probably the first one I can remember selling, which actually this was a straight rail. The first go-kart I can remember selling in this area, period, would be a straight rail, was a guy named Jesse Engel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Williams family that run the tire store, Cascade Tire, they were customers of ours all through the time, and they all got switched over to Stalkers, and people started winning races. Robbie Davis started winning races on it, Andy Whitten. And then this guy named Todd Miller got on.
Some guy. Some guy
Named Todd Miller.
Yeah. But you know, sticking with the Stalker really fast, you know, things kind of rolled pretty quick. You know, orders started coming in once people started realizing what was going on with it. And I believe from what I was told is kind of you'd kind of worked in a little bit of CNC work with the Stalker coming in, correct? Or was that a little bit later down the road? I believe it was late 90s was what I was told.
We didn't get into the CNC stuff until later 90s.
Yeah, okay.
It was later, like 97 or so. Gotcha. I got people calling me from the Midwest on that. But
so it was kind of just hand welding and bending and everything like that till you moved on. So I'm sure it was late nights at the shop.
Man, you don't know. I mean, the Stalker exploded. Orders started piling in. We were already like, I don't know how far behind. We were, by the time Todd came on the scene, we were already going pretty good. I mean, I don't want to discredit, but I also don't want to put more credit than is due. We already had a bunch of orders by the time Todd came on the scene. But it was just me welding go-karts, and I was welding as hard as I could weld. And we would myself and actually Chris Bailey, that still works for us. He was working for me when he was in high school. He came on. He would come in after school and put together karts, and we would weld and just build what we could for like 4 days a week, and then we would stop. We'd paint, and then we would, you know, Chris would assemble them the next week, and I'd build another batch of them. But orders were like in the hundreds. You know, well, at that time they were probably 50, 75 carts behind. And again, I was building, you know, like 3 or 4 a day. You know, that's the best I could do. You know, and we used to put this is a good story here about my mom. As y'all know, my mama has worked for me for the biggest part of the 35 years.
Oh yeah.
And she, at that time, she was actually answering the phone and all that stuff. And we used to write the orders every time when people would call in. We would just write the orders on a small little manila tag. It was like a 3x5 tag with a string, and we would write all their information on it, and we would tape it on the side of a refrigerator. I'll turn this around. This is not a refrigerator, but this is a refrigerator, just like full size. All right. And if you could imagine, in our old shop, when the orders were at their peak, there was rows. There would be rows, and we'd start at the top left-hand corner, we'd go all the way down, and there was like 5 or 6 rows, as many as you could get. I wish I had some pictures. I run across some pictures some years ago of that refrigerator. I wish I could find them today, but the entire side of that refrigerator was covered in tags. I mean, these things were shingled. They were overlapped. It wasn't like they were side by side. They were overlapped. There was probably between 100 and 200 tags on that refrigerator at all times.
That's crazy.
And one time I walked in, I was listening. My mom was on the phone, and I was listening to her, and I could tell kind of what was going on in the conversation. And I just listened, and I heard Mom, talking, and I knew what was happening. And she got off the phone, and then she said, "Okay, we'll call you when it'll be done. It'll probably be done next week or so." And she takes that tag and she goes over and she sticks it right on all the way to the left-hand side, right over here on the the next in line. I said, "Mom," I said, "was that a new order?" "Yeah." He paid me $100 a row. I said, "What?" She said, "Well, there's 5 rows here. There's 5 rows of tags." And I told him there was 5 rows of tags, and he said he'd pay $100 a row. So he's going to give me a $500 tip, and you got to have his go-kart done next week. I said, "Mom, you can't do that." She said, "Well, I've already done it now."
We're just gonna remember that for the next time. But I got my 500 coming.
But that same thing happened whenever Todd came about, because and I'm sure y'all want to hear about how I met Todd.
Yeah.
He his dad came by one day. Andy and I had been racing, and we had been racing some at Carteret County and different places. And Todd, at that time, he was working at CKI, and he was beginning to move out on his own and do his own thing. I think he might have already moved out on his own. And he was running the CKI Kart, but I think he wanted to try to be his own. He wanted to stand on his own. I mean, nothing against the CKI Kart. I think he just wanted to go ahead and become his own business, his own person.
Yeah, make his own name.
Yeah. He wanted to make his own name. Well, his dad, Ronnie Miller, came by my shop one day. I'm in there digging and working, and that refrigerator. I'm not going to say the orders were already backed up that far, but we had a lot of carts on order. And Ronnie came in, and he's telling me about Todd. And I had seen Todd. I never had really met him, but I had seen him race. I knew who he was. And he's telling me what's going on. He's like, he needs a cart. I'm like, well, I don't have any. Well, I need a cart. He wants to try to race this weekend, so on and so forth. Well, after talking a while, what we decided is I said, I can't get you a cart. I said, but me and Andy's not going to race for a while. Or we're not going to race this weekend. I said, I can let you run his cart, the one he's been riding. I said, but you'll have to bring it back. Okay, whatever. So we go out in the trailer. The cart, actually Andy's cart was still in the trailer. So we took it out. I think we took the seat out of it, took the motor and different stuff off of it. And Ronnie put it in the back of his truck. Down the road he went. And I don't think this is before cell phones. If you know Todd Miller today, he don't talk on the phone that much. I don't think I even talked to Todd at all. I told Ronnie what the things I thought he should do. Well, Todd takes that go-kart. I don't remember if he went to Liberty or Tyro. I think it was Liberty. And I think it was for a state race. I don't remember. Back in those days, Liberty and Tyro had big crowds every weekend. Every time they opened the gate, they had big crowds. Todd went and he won light, medium, and heavy. That's back when they had light, medium, and heavy, true three stock classes. And he won all 3 classes. And Ronnie didn't want to bring the go-kart back. I said, no, you got to bring it back. I said, I'll build you another one. He said, no, just keep this one. Well, he ended up bringing it back. And I'm pretty sure, I got to think about this, and I'm sure that Phil's going to like this. I'm pretty sure that go-kart is the one that was at the Hall of Fame and the North Carolina Racing Hall of Fame for so many decades and is now at the Phil Combs Museum. I'm pretty sure that's the first Phantom Todd Miller ever rode right there.
Really? So that's the one that went to
Holy cow.
Daytona. Is that the one that he has that has all the articles at Daytona and stuff too?
That's the one. I think Andy rode it when we went to Daytona.
Yeah, Andy Whitten. Yeah, we had like 200 and something entries at Daytona, and he won.
Yeah. I think so.
Holy
I
cow.
don't remember all the articles about it, but I'm pretty sure that was the go-kart. I can't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty positive that was the go-kart.
That's cool.
That Todd rode, and then Todd started winning races, and he just added fuel to the fire. Him and that there were others too. I don't want to overshadow the rest of the people who were helping me at the time. That were winning races on it as well. But Todd was a big name that got on it.
Yeah, the big red machine. Nobody can miss that thing.
Well, I don't think he was big. I don't remember what colors he rode back then, but I don't think it was red at that time. I mean, he ran a lot of red, but I don't
Yeah.
remember.
So going back to your mechanical aspirations and your thought process, whenever you had originally designed the Stalker, what were you looking for and what were some of the aspirations that you were hoping to see once it hit the track?
Well, you got to remember now that was the go kart that I didn't like. I didn't think it was going to work. I mean,
Yeah, this
Right.
thing's supposed to be junk. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I had all this great vision and I designed it in that go kart. I mean, I don't want to say it was an accident. I mean, we built it, but if I sit here and say that I wanted the kart to do A, B, and C, and that's what it went out and done, I'd be lying because that's not the one I wanted to sell.
yeah,
Right.
But it taught us a lot. I mean, we definitely wanted something that would run on the dirt. I mean, you got to remember too, along about that time is whenever we started running the bigger, wider tires. We started running the wider tires on the right front. That's when we started running, went from running 450s, 550s on the front. We started running 650s at that time.
Mhm.
That was really kind of before we got into the 710s, 800s, all that stuff. So, we had to build a kart so that it would accommodate those tires. It's just, there was a lot of stuff going on during that time. There was multiple tires available. We had Bridgestones and Dunlops. It was a different time in karting right then.
yeah, for sure. And so, you said you were against it with the Stalker. You're against it, but then it takes off and goes crazy. So you're kind of getting the grasp of the offset go kart is kind of where the speed's at. So, going into the Banshee, how essential was trying to make it a little bit better with knowing that the offset was kind of the way to go.
The Banshee, the main thing we wanted to do with it is we wanted to increase roll speed. By that time we were momentum racing. The oval stuff had gotten more and more popular, and so that's another thing between the straight rail and the Stalker. Karting was transitioning back then. Like I said, we did some Gold Cup racing. We were doing multiple facets of karting. By the time we roll on over into the Stalker now and the Banshee, everything's getting specialized. We're going dirt racing, some pavement, but we're exclusive, and the tracks are getting bigger, the tracks are getting faster. The tires are getting better. Again, we're not cutting tires, I don't think, at that point in time. Probably by the time the Banshee was in the later years of life, we were learning about it. But so we're starting to get to the point where we will need to make a lot of roll speed. We're finding out that we need the things to roll. We need them to build momentum. It's not just turn and rip around the bottom. We're starting to run the tracks bigger. So that's whenever Todd and I, Todd helped us design that. He was a test pilot for that kart. We started to try to get something to roll better. That's the reason that we went to the 1.25" side rails.
Mm-hmm.
That was, to my knowledge. Now I'm sure some keyboard cowboy will come back and say, well, this kart here was done it before you. But I think production wise, the Banshee was the first big tube go kart to actually make it go on dirt. Now,
really?
maybe there was another one, but I don't think so.
Nobody talks about it if there was.
No, nobody talks about if it was, but that's the reason. If you notice, the Banshee has big side rails and small cross rails, because I was scared to go everything big, because that was a big change. At that point, everything was inch and an eighth.
The full commitment wasn't there yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were learning.
Yeah, for sure.
But I can remember when the Banshee hit. I mean, honestly, if we look back, and I know you're going to ask questions about ones who made big strides. Of course, the offset thing was a big step. I can't take credit for that. There was, like I said, there was people building offset karts before I did, but I think as far as all out speed, probably our biggest leap in speed was the Banshee. Because the Banshee was hands down made more speed than the Stalker. And at the time made more speed than about everything out there. I can remember going to the Nationals at Beech Nut, Tennessee in the late 90s, and there were 16 classes. There were either 14 or 16 classes. All but 2 of them were 4-cycle. There was 2 2-cycle classes at that time. every 4-cycle class that weekend was won by a Banshee. And not only was it the won by a Banshee, most of them were top 4 to top 8.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
it was the most lopsided show that I ever witnessed. I mean, because I remember riding home and I said, we won every single class.
Almost won every
And-
position.
Yeah, we did. I mean, there was one division. I don't remember what it was, but I remember there was like the top 8. And I mean, it wasn't just there were top 8. It was like there were the top 8 in another zip code. I mean, they were
Break
top.
away and roll.
Yeah, it was there for a year or so, or there for a short period of time. It was pretty lopsided, and then of course, everybody, the rest of the manufacturers and racers, they started catching up.
I know this isn't a question we have kind of planned, but I'm curious, was switching to that big tube one of your most proud innovations of PRC?
I mean, for the time, yes. I think it was a good move for the time. I mean, you look back now and you say, well, just change a big tube. That's a no brainer. But you got to realize at the time nobody else was doing it then. I mean,
Yeah.
Again, not to say that somebody hadn't built a big tube go-kart. I'm sure there were big tube go-kart. I don't know that anybody else was producing and trying to sell and market a line of carts at that time.
Putting your name and reputation on it as a larger company too. That's a big risk.
Yeah, it was a risk, and it paid off. This one right here too. This I'll show it, which that is the number 1 Banshee. That cart was built and taken to Kart Fest when it was in Charlotte. Was painted that color.
Cool.
That is the first one. That cart has never made a lap. That's the original. Everything that was bolted to it and taken to Kart Fest. And I still have the original Banshee body. That's not on it anymore. I took it off. It used to hang in here, but to match the rest of the cars that don't have bodies on them, I took the body off. But I still have Banshee body number 1 and Banshee chassis number 1 still here, never been ridden. And the other thing too, when you talk about too, is that was the first full body.
Yeah,
that we sold.
I just noticed the Nerf bars were different from the Stalker.
Yep. That's whenever we started running the tall bodies. Was in 97, I guess it is. 97.
So
Yeah.
So from the highest of highs, you would say, with the Banshee, then kind of coming back down to earth with the Gauntlet. Maybe talk a little bit about the Gauntlet. What was your ideas with that? What was the letdown of it, and how did you recognize the shortcomings and climb back to the top with the Nemesis?
We got pretty creative there. I will say this: the biggest. I mean, we'll talk about the faults of the cart next, but the mistake number 1 with the Gauntlet was the fact that of how I released it and how we marketed it. We kept it a secret because at that time there was a lot of people that were taking advantage of our technology. There was a lot of duplicates of the Banshee. They were making. I mean, a lot of people was making knockoffs of our stuff, and they were profiting from our inability to be able to keep up with the demand. Even though, like during the Banshee, I mean during the Banshee era is also whenever we brought in the first robot and all that stuff.
Okay.
So we were able to ramp up production, but I felt like that I was getting kind of irritated at people. I felt like profiting off of what we had done. So we went to great lengths to keep the Gauntlet under wraps. Nobody, we didn't test it publicly. We kept it hidden. We started producing it many months before we released it, and we had built hundreds and hundreds of go-karts and bodies, and because I wanted to hit the market and have an inventory, because what at that time what would happen is everybody would go to Kart Fest, and whether we came up with something new or if somebody else came up with something new, because it wasn't only happening to us, it was happening to other people too.
Yeah.
People would go to Kart Fest, which was in January, into January, and in some regions of the country, they didn't back then. We actually had an off season, which is something we need now, but we don't have.
What are those?
Yeah.
In some regions, people would go back and actually duplicate and have made some of the stuff that they seen at Kart Fest, not only Phantom stuff, but other stuff. and would actually be selling it before you could sell it. So I wanted to be able to, when we released it at Kart Fest, I wanted to be able to just send people home with go-karts. I wanted to be able to fill the orders. I didn't want these other people to be able to take advantage. So here we are at Kart Fest, and they open up doors. These people walk in and they see this gauntlet, and it hit them by total surprise. And the biggest majority of the customers, they didn't appreciate that. So that was strike number one right there.
You're saying because they didn't know they were going to be able to purchase a cart at the show.
They didn't know we were going to have a new go.
Gotcha.
We kept it quiet, and I don't think they appreciate. And there was some people that knew it, but back then you got to realize there weren't any there was not any internet or what.
Yeah.
Social media.
Social media.
Yeah.
There was no social media, so it wasn't like, I mean, it was easier to keep stuff quiet back then.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if it's not making laps against other people. I mean, you won't be able to even tell it's a different go-kart, because you said y'all privately tested, correct?
We did. Okay. The next thing about the gauntlet, its shortcomings in the kart, is that was going from the Banshee to the gauntlet. The gauntlet was an 083 kart. It's pretty soft. Yes, it had a different front axle and geometry. It had a lot of differences in it. Quite honestly, it was probably ahead of its time. But that, on the fact that it was a lot different, was it good enough? Probably not. Was it as bad as it got tagged? No, it wasn't that bad. But in fact, with the way we released it being wrong, and just the kart not being a great kart, it got tagged as being bad. And we decided to do the buyback program. I've got pictures. We offered a deal where people wanted to exchange it, they could exchange it. I told you we had built hundreds of karts, right?
Yeah.
A big portion of what we had built never sold, never assembled. Well, some of them we assembled, some of them we never sold, were cut up and taken to scrap. I got pictures of truckloads of brand new gauntlets, painted or powder coated, pretty bright colors, that went to the scrap.
Dude, that had to hurt. I mean, that,
Oh,
especially coming off the Banshee, you're trying to be ahead of the ball right there to where you don't have a big wait list, and then you go ahead and do that, and that happens. That has to hurt.
It did. I mean, I can't say that I didn't bring it on, that we didn't bring it on ourselves, or I didn't bring it on myself. I mean, I say a lot of these times I'll say it's we. A lot of people have helped me, but in that instance, the final decision stops with me. And I tell Todd and everybody that who's tested with me over the years is, I want to hear what you got to say, but I'm gonna make the decision because I'm the one that's got to be responsible for it. I don't say that to take the glory, but in that instance, it was my responsibility. It cost me that money. That falls on my shoulder.
Yeah,
for
sure. But you kick it back with the Nemesis, and that was I guess you could say like my second flat go-kart, but we ran it for a long time, and it was honestly, my dad talks about it all the time. It was one of his favorite go-karts to work with. So it had a big tire window, and what was the study and the work going into that after, especially going to the Gauntlet? I mean, I could imagine it's tough to even want to build another chassis after what happened with the Gauntlet, but coming to the Nemesis for it to be such a successful go-kart, what was that like?
Well, we knew we went too soft on the Gauntlet. We knew we had to make a kart that was stiffer, that would make the tires bite better. I think at that time we were competing against the Laser AB2. If my memory serves me correct, I think they were the ones that were really giving us a bid at the time. And that kart was a good bit stiffer than what we had in the Gauntlet, and the Banshee for that matter. So we ended up going with stiffer design. And as you can see here, see how the Gauntlet's got a side in the front end, but in the back end, you see how you got your diagonal rear seat rail that goes back to the left rear.
Yeah.
See what the Banshee is. The Banshee goes all the way back almost to the left rear.
Mm-hmm.
The Gauntlet, we went a little bit further forward. We did a whole lot better. But then look at here. You got the K bar, but that we never used that thing. The left rear frame rail the rear seat rail goes way forward on the left rear.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Also, this is the time whenever the big cross numbers come into effect.
Yeah.
Whenever we started running the great big cross. You want to hear a story about how that came about?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Now I'm sure somebody down the road here is gonna say that they knew about it and blah 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 blah. But this is how we come to know it. And I think we were kind of early on the pioneer of it, but we were testing for this. We were testing to recover from this gauntlet. And we were back and forth between the Banshee and we were trying to run different stuff. Ended up on the Nemesis. But during the same time, we were at Baker, Florida. We were running the Nationals down there. And if you remember, I don't know if any of y'all ever went to Baker, Florida.
One of my favorite racetracks.
It was big, fast, wide open, sweeping track,
Mhm.
high speed at the time. It was summertime. We go down there and Todd's racing, and he's got a customer, and I'm pretty sure it was Jamie Russell. Jamie Russell. When he hears this, he's going to go crazy. But he was running Todd's stuff, and he was fast. We didn't know why he was fast. He was just fast. And Todd, after we get down there, and Todd, we're off the pace. Jamie's fast. Todd says, "Bring your go-kart over here. I want to weigh it out." So Jamie, if I'm not mistaken, Jamie was weighing his go-kart out at the shop on a wooden floor. Well, when Todd put that thing on the scales, we looked at the spindles and all on it. And I said, this thing's got a lot of crossing. We put it on the scales, and it did. It had a lot of crossing, a lot of crossing. Well, Jamie didn't know that it had that much crossing. He thought it had like mid 50s or whatever. Well, it was up in the 60s. I don't remember the exact number. Todd and I talked about it, and I said, well, let's try it. Let's just try it. So we just crammed all the cross we could get into the cart we were riding at the time. I'm not going to say it was a Nemesis, but it was something, leading up to it. And it took off. I mean, it speeded up many tenths of a second. I mean, just overnight.
Changed the day.
Changed the day. Well, what that all came from was the fact that Jamie was running something he didn't even know he had. It was kind of by accident. Now again, a keyboard cowboy is going to get on here and say, oh, well, we innovated that back in whatever. Maybe you did. But that's how we came about it, was that right there. Like I say, Todd had him bring it. We weighed it out. Jamie said, there ain't no way. Well, the reason it was off is he was weighing it on that wooden floor. That wooden floor is soft.
It compressed, yeah.
It compressed. And depending on where he had his scales setting, evidently his right front was the right front or left rear was in a softer place in the floor, so it pushed down. Well, he kept adjusting the cart until he got his cross numbers up. But when you put it over onto a solid surface, he had about 10% more cross than he thought he did.
That's crazy.
Wow. That's cool.
Here we go.
That's awesome. Yeah, you accidentally changed the whole game right there.
So the next thing that we got to noticing is in order to run, switch the camera back. In order to run the high cross, we figured out we had to make the left rear soft.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we moved the left frame rail, the rear seat rail forward. And then all the parts have just been continually, there's a Phenom. They've all gone further and further forward. And then as we're getting on up into your, Sarah, they can't see that. It's got a roof pan in it. But anyway, they just keep getting further forward because the left rear has to be soft, because if you run all that cross and you run the rail, or for us, if you run the rear seat rail back to the left rear and you try to run the big cross number, it won't turn.
Yeah. It's not going to unload.
So my dad is actually still trying to buy back my first kart, which was a Nemesis.
The Nemesis was our highest selling kart.
Was it really?
Yeah, by far. A lot of people think it was one of the others, but by far it was the number one selling. But it was the time that it was the era too. That was the highlight. That was the height of karting for our era anyway.
Yeah.
So the person that we sold it to, that it got sold to another person. The last person that has had it, my dad, I think this was probably 2014, offered to buy them a brand new kart from you to get my Nemesis back. And they turned him down because he was still winning on that Nemesis in 14.
Wow. So I mean, there's some people who just hang on to them. I
Yeah.
have people call me from time to time and say that they still have their gauntlet. They won't get rid of it. I mean, they're not racing it, but they're hanging it on the wall. They won't get rid of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Hey,
It's
hey,
actually. Oh, sorry.
I told you I was going to remember that guy's name that had the OG hats.
Mhm.
Jeff Bryant. For some
Okay.
reason, I couldn't remember Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff Bryant, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I can't remember names. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's all good.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat that your highest selling cart was the Nemesis, because I mean the Nemesis was around when I first got into karting, and a lot of people had them in Louisiana where we're from, but man, whenever that Triton took off, I felt like everyone I raced against was on a Triton.
Yeah.
So I thought,
Triton's so good. I mean, as far as percentage of the market, we probably had more percentage of the market with the Banshee and maybe the Triton than we did with the Nemesis. But you got to remember there were so many more people racing during the Nemesis.
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. That makes way more sense. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, 'cause
the Nemesis, there was like 3 years in a row we made over 1,000 cars. Our biggest year was 1,300.
Golly,
Man, that's insane.
that's nuts.
Yeah, it was a lot. We probably got close to it with the Phenom. But see, by the time the Nemesis or by the time the Triton came around, you know, there's not enough sold by then. Meet that
Yeah.
kind of. I mean, we had as far as market percentage, we probably had equal or more with the Triton, but there wasn't as many people
Yeah.
racing.
Yeah, I mean, I know we bought 3 from you. Well, Matt Connell, we had bought them from Matt. Well, one from Brandon Young, my first one, and then 2 from Matt Connell.
Yeah, mine came from Todd. But you know,
One thing about the Triton during that time that's different now and was different before that is during the Triton, a lot of Team PRC, you know, the PRC customer base in general, but you know, everything flows down.
mhm.
A lot of our customer base was really into staying on new chassis.
Yeah.
And that's something that has changed because people spending so much money on tires, they don't want to change out their chassis as much. But during the Triton era, you know, Mike Burns was here and we had that certified program. You know, where we were taking, but people, you know, our top level guys, and I don't mean to segregate people, but our top level guys were only running chassis about 6 times
Yeah.
or 6 weekends. Now, remember, you're running 4 and 5 classes per
Yes.
weekend,
Yeah.
but you know, they would run them 6 to maybe 6 to 10 events, and then they would sell them. And it's not that the go-karts were bad, it's just they could get the most money out of them there. So they were buying them, racing them those times, selling them down a tier, you know, again, not to segregate people, but they would sell them down a tier, get all but a few $100s of their money back, put it in a new car, and and that cycle began, and they just kept flowing down, and that helped the Triton get to a lot of local races, a lot of local racers because they were buying really good used cars. That's the thing now. You can't buy good used cars because people run them to death. Usually, by the time they sell them, even if it was a good car to begin with, by the time you get it, it's
Got
not.
1,000 races on it.
It's got 1,000 races on it because they're saving up to buy their tires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I specifically remember that little little section on the website, the certified used go-karts. I forgot what it was called, but it was that
Yeah.
certified program. I'd go look at it like about once a
Yep.
week, just checking them out, just looking at it. Even though I had a perfectly good Triton in the house, I was like, I just want to see what's going on.
Yep.
Yep. And you know, when Mike was here, he spearheaded that, and he made it work good. And you know, some of it when he left, you know, we weren't able to continue with that, but also karting changed. I'm not going to say that we could have if he'd have stayed that we could have, or if he was still here, that we could do it today, because you cannot, because the customer base has changed.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back to the Phenom, widely known still to this day about being one of the best coach served karts. What was the process like for y'all whenever y'all were doing some R&D and testing for that debut?
Well, during the Phenom development and all, that's when the Briggs & Stratton 300 and you still had a lot of your pavement racing going on. Jason Petty and I were racing, we raced on the Nemesis as well, but, leading up to the Phenom, the Phenom was heavily developed around pavement. It worked on the dirt, but I think that's the reason that it was so good that it's even to this day, it's still good on the Coke syrup because we developed it around high bite situations. And then also even the dirt tracks during those days, that's before we really got the tires developed to the point now to where they don't have, tires today don't have a lot of grip. You got to put it all in with chemicals. Back then you built a lot of tire grip. So, you had a lot of bite. So that kart really lends itself well to high grip situations like Coke syrup. But it had a lot to do with, the speedway pavement still being around. Jason Petty and I are doing a lot of racing there. And, that's how it came about. It's as far as design wise, it's not, yes, it's different from the Nemesis, but the Nemesis has the L rail in it where the seat rail goes back to the right rear. That really didn't work as well on the pavement. Loading that right rear that hard didn't work as well. So we took that out of it and went back with the loop, kind of like the Banshee and the Gauntlets, or the Banshees and the Stalkers. That kart, as far as performance, I would say that kart actually performed better than Nemesis, but it didn't sell as well because by that time, the amount of kart sale, the amount of participation was starting to fall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did well for us. That was our first chassis, and I loved that kart.
Yeah.
And so there was a second evolution of the Phenom, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there was the ES2. We tried to keep it going for a while longer. We tried doing an economical version, and it worked. We sold some. Actually, old Bob Baker, a lot of those, several of those King of the Concretes he won was on an ES2.
Mm-hmm.
We took the caster blocks off, to make them cheaper. We just did a steel L block, and you could adjust caster with peels instead of the L block, and it worked. It worked. Can't really. A few people say it was better than the original, but most like the original was better.
Yeah, for sure.
I hadn't seen an ES2 in forever. Usually, I'm sure there's some around, but.
So transitioning to my favorite kart, and this has got a special place in my heart. The Icon, first of its kind, split cassette design and more. How rewarding was it to you to see all the manufacturers championships after all of the hard work and innovation that you brought over from the overseas karting, and the dedication that went into that chassis?
It was good. It was a struggle getting the customer base to switch to the Icon. There was still a lot that wanted to stay on the Phenoms. That was every step other than the Gauntlet, which was a hiccup, but every other step, when we transitioned, the mass of the customer base went with us. With the Icon, it was a little bit more of a struggle to get on the move, but I think in the end it worked. By this time, the pavement racing is starting to die down. It's more dirt. So, the Icon was based more around just dirt instead of both. So, we made the car a little bit softer. Made that loop in the right side a little bigger, transferred the weight more evenly across the right side. The split cassettes, yeah, we did that. The split cassette wasn't nothing new. I showed you those from out there, but I think what we did innovate with the wear rings that allowed us to put a higher dollar, more user friendly, split cassette that people could take the axles out and still have the wear rings that they could replace and not have to replace, the whole big expensive cassette, because the European versions, they didn't have the wear rings on them. So, we added those, and then we put the peels in it so you could adjust height on one side and lead on the other to give everybody, more adjustability.
And
they use very much of it, but they did do some of it.
And the Wiggy bar kind of made its debut with the Icon, correct? Or was that the Seraph?
No, it was with the Icon.
The Icon, yeah.
Yeah, they the Wiggy bar was made because, and I don't know, at the time at the time we felt like it made a big difference, but we noticed that, that the car during that time, the carts were getting so much heavier. They were upping the weight limits of the classes, and the carts were carrying so much more weight. We got to noticing that the smaller drivers could make so much more roll speed than the bigger drivers. Even if you had the same total weight car, like you had a 375-pound car, that 150-pound driver could make more roll speed than a 190-pound driver. And we got to noticing how, the seat's just like a hammock, because all the bolts that mount it are on the outside. So when the driver sits in the car, the seat basically folds up around the driver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a bag, basically. It folds up around. I mean, that still happens today.
Mm-hmm.
So I designed the Wiggy bar because I felt like that, that squeezing the seat struts together in the back was causing the carts to bind up more. So we did the bar to isolate any of that extra stress, to put it into that bar instead of putting it in the car.
For sure.
And we felt like it worked, and then we did the adjustable seat slides in the front and all that. But as karting has evolved, and even up to today, racers seem to want the carts to be more simple. They don't want the extra stuff on them, because they don't work on it. All they work on is tires. So a lot of that was starting to happen, right after that, as we went on to the other cars. People had from here forward in time, they work less on they're working less and less with the wrenches and more with the prep pads. So some of that stuff just became, they didn't want it. They don't want to put it on the car. They don't want to haul it around. They don't want to work on it. So that's the reason some of the stuff we've backed out of the cars, out of the size.
Yeah, and what also kind of debuted with the Seraph was the tilt wheel. I mean, the Icon. I'm sorry,
Icon.
the Icon. The tilt
Yep.
wheel. It kind of started with that. That was kind of something new to the scene as well. What was the idea behind that? Was it just comfortability, or was it something else?
Yeah, we wanted it rolled back because the seats, as we've went along, the seats continue to lay further and further back, and you have to twist your wrist in order to hold on to the steering wheel the further you lean back.
Mm-hmm.
We tilted the wheel up to make for driver comfort. We'd already done the topless wheel back. We did that back in the Nemesis days.
Yeah.
But it was bigger, and then also when we tilted it, we made it smaller horizontally, or made it shorter vertically.
Yeah.
Still the same width. We made it, instead of making it more of a round with the top cut out, made it more of an oval, so people can get in and out of the cars better.
And I think
Sure.
didn't the left side of it kind of extend further than the right, so you can kind of leverage on the left side of the wheel?
Yes, it did. Y'all lose me there? Y'all still got me?
We got
We're
Gotcha.
good.
Yeah, we made it adjustable so you can move it. So because you basically pull with your left hand. I mean, you don't do much with your right. So we made the wheel offset, and then we put, I think it's got slots in it, so you can slide. You can
Slide
move
it,
more
yeah.
left. So it made the wheel drive like it was bigger than it actually was, or is, because we're still making it today. So
Yeah, it's been it's had a long run. And then y'all, of course, had the 20th anniversary with those. Those were pretty special go-karts out there. I think that was what Ethan's Icon was, huh?
Yep, still got it.
you still got a 20th anniversary?
Oh, Mr. Harrell, let me get off on a tangent real fast. My dad, we got this cart at the end of 09, and my dad every other year would take this thing down to the frame and get it repowder coated.
Is it still the same color?
Yes, sir. And
Going back to showroom. You ready for this?
uh-oh.
There's a brand new one.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That's actually the show cart from back then. We never sold it. We kept it. Still got the original decal package on it, hanging on the wall. Still got the original silver color.
That's
So yours
awesome.
looks like that.
Oh no, mine was not. Mine's not silver. Mine is black. Because
Okay.
racing down here, my dad was tired. Got upset because the silver was chipping, so he went black.
Yeah, the silver didn't hold up as well.
So my my dad every 2 years would take it apart to the bare frame. I'm sorry. I would help him, and then once I got old enough, it was we'd unload it the last time. I'd wash it, and it was, hey, take it apart. I'm repowder coating it. Okay. And back whenever we had originally done it, my dad took a camera. This is how OCD he is. Love him to death. He took pictures of everything that came off in order and printed them backwards and
Really,
put them in a binder. And when we put it back together, he flipped through the binder like a picture book.
that's great. That's great. You know, that's the stuff that makes it special. You know, I mean, all the races and stuff, you know, that you win, those are special. But whenever you hear that people took the time that people cherish what you built, and it means something to them, and that they had, you know, just like the story you just told, that's special. It makes.
I'll have to text you a few pictures.
Yeah, do that, please.
And it's the last time I raced it was at the end of 19. And we were planning on going and racing in 2020. And of course, COVID happened and everything. And at the end of the season, my dad and I took it apart, cleaned everything, mineral spirits, denatured alcohol, all the ceramic bearings, and put it back together. And it is still sitting in the hauler, ready to go race, going on 5 years later.
Awesome. Awesome. There's a lot of go-karts, you know, Phantoms in general is what we're talking about, that are like that. People still got them. They won't move. They won't let them go. They're special to them.
Yeah, I was destined to never let my Triton go, but
I'm sorry.
my brother forced me to
I'm
hang it up
sorry.
on the ceiling after he rolled the right rear rail on it. So she ain't going nowhere though. She's gonna hang on the ceiling and she's gonna listen to music while we work on the other one. So
So, but I think the most special part about it is, you know, whenever I'm, you know, I have children, I can always bring them to that cart and say, I know the man that built this, and I'll never get rid of it.
That's great. That's great. And
pretty good stuff.
That's special, you know, to see something that you built that somebody else takes pride into. That's great.
For sure.
Well, from the Icon, we'll move on to the Seraph. Seraph and the Triton, you know, of the lessons learned from the Seraph, how pivotal was the knowledge gained in the model and design of the Triton?
The Seraph was a fast go-kart. It just was not very user friendly. It wasn't as drivable. Wasn't as the window of tire tolerance was pretty small.
Yeah, okay, and
So
I'm glad you said that because it's exactly kind of
Yeah.
what I kind of experienced with it. It was like you either hit it or you didn't.
Well, it's we think it's because the cart's so stiff in the right front. You know, it made it kind of oversaturates the right front, and if you miss it, it would shove the front end really bad. It was, you know, if you hit it, it was fast. It had extra speed there, but it wasn't very user friendly. And you know, that's kind of from probably the Phenom forward. That's what we fought with. You know, but I say fought with. That's the challenge is you can this is how we feel. As the quest for speed is a give and take with drivability. You can potentially get some extra speed, but you sacrifice some driver comfort process. You know, maybe somebody out there got it figured out and tells me that's not true, but that's the way I see it. But
For
sure. We've with the Triton, we wanted it to be drivable. We wanted it to be user friendly. We wanted a bigger window. We wanted a softer feel. We wanted a more forgiving feel. So that's how we came about with the Triton. That was the goal.
I think y'all did pretty dang well with it too. I mean,
Yeah, man.
there's another go-kart that you could kind of bolt almost anything on, be just kind of close to it, and it can still ride and be pretty dang good. Be a top 3 go-kart for sure.
In the mid 2010s, man, I feel like every field I ran against was 80 to 90% Tritons. all over the country. Everyone was on that thing. It was so dominant, so fast. And what do you think set it apart from everyone else at that point in time?
Well, like I say, it was user friendly, the drivability, and we had at that point, as far as big name top tier drivers, I think we had about all of them at that point. They were all on it. Unlike you got to realize, even back when we had the Phenom and the Nemesis and all, there was still other big teams and other big, good representation of our competitors by name drivers. But whenever we had Triton during the Triton days, about everybody, that was, your top tier people, 90% of them or 80% of them was riding the Triton.
Mhm.
That's what made them look really good too. But I like to say that they weren't there by accident. They chose to ride. So, but and again, at that point too, people were changing out the chassis a lot. That was
Yeah.
That was when the chassis rotation kind of started, rather than the tire rotation was more important, kind of.
Yep. Tell you a quick story. Back Todd Miller. Todd has always had 100% confidence in. Well, I say this now. If you hear him tell, he may say different, but I feel like Todd has always had full confidence in me and Phantom and our products and what we produce as a company. He's never had a problem with just taking a new go-kart and going to big race. Do y'all remember whenever he and Daniel won that truck down at Paradise?
Yes.
Yes.
They had I forgot what race it was, but it was a truck. This was right in the height of whenever we were making sure we were on new metal and all that stuff. And let me finish the story and then I'll back up. That night because we had been going down there and like every 5 or 6 races we're running new cars, and we noticed that every time we put together a new piece, we were the best the first night out. So I told Todd, I said, why don't you, for that big race, I said, why don't we roll out for the main event on a brand new piece? He's like, can we get away with it? I said, I don't see why not if you're not marking the chassis or nothing. So that night, we had 2 cars fixed up just alike. One had some races on it, and then we had another brand new one sitting there. And when Daniel rolled out and took the green flag for that main event, that was lap number 1 on that car. And
Really?
he didn't qualify. Yeah, he didn't qualify. It never hit the racetrack until main event time.
Wow.
And he won it pretty handily. Now, let me back up and say something. It's when I say new car, it's not only, and what we learned at that time, it was not only just the rails. A lot of people listening will say, "Oh, it's because you use cheap metal and this and that and the other." That's only a piece of it. You got to realize when you put together a go-kart, it's a complete assembly of nuts and bolts and clamps and fiberglass, and everything on it is new or used. It's not only the welded tubing that's part of it. And what we realized is the whole assembly being new made a difference.
Yeah.
You could come back and just re-nut and bolt everything. Just take it all apart, throw all the old nuts and bolts away, put new seat struts, new seat slides, all the stuff that wears, all the stuff that took abuse, all the stuff that takes stress, all of it as an assembly made a difference. It's not just, a lot of people at that time, really before that, would reframe a car. They'd take a bunch of old parts and put on a new chassis. Well, they didn't see a big result in that. But when you take a whole new package, it made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that night, like I say, we rolled out. They may want their money back, so we changed chassis. But I'm pretty sure Todd's done. But that was a brand new go-kart. When it took the green flag, that was lap 1.
That's crazy. And it's funny you say that because I'm sure Chance, I'm sure you remember the Pro Kart Tour at that indoor race when me and you went help Hunter Thibodeau, Hootie, as we know him. He had got a brand new Triton right before then, and he had a Triton that he had rode for a year. They had meticulously changed spindles and axles and stuff throughout that year, but they brought it to the indoor. one ran animal, one ran clone, and he gets off the racetrack. He had practiced both, and he was just like, that new Triton just feels different. It's got more speed and it feels a little bit better. So you saying that kind of
Same setup, same time, like every sister said, but
it felt better.
Yep.
and we ended
I
up
mean,
winning that with the new cart.
Yep.
Won the pro race.
I still think it's that way today. I think you could still. I mean, tires are so much a determining factor now, and that's a whole subject for another podcast. But yeah, I think a new chassis assembly, no matter what brand you ride, I think could make a difference. But people won't do it today. Number one, they don't want to spend the money. Number two, they don't want to take time away from the tire program. But it's during that time, people would do it, and it made a difference. But it's that time is
Yeah, for sure. And something else I thought was really cool. I believe it was with a Triton. I think you and it, I don't know. I know Todd's motor was on it, and it was a Triton as well. But at Paradise, when Terry Labania came down, they had auctioned off that one go kart, and he had signed it and everything. I thought that was really cool.
Yep. I forgot what we were raising money for.
It's a T4 Films video, so I'm sure I can go watch it and check it out, see what it was about. But yeah, it was an auction to raise money for something.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say we've been involved in a lot of them, so I can't remember all the details, but I do remember Terry Labonte being there and signing it, but I do not remember what we were raising money for.
Yeah.
So I remember watching your setup videos. My dad and I watching those, learning from them, reading your articles and chasing racing, and then you were in a lot of other tech help. I don't know if you want to call them articles or just media. What was that like getting to share? Did you just go share everything you knew, or do you share pieces of what you knew, or how'd you get involved, period, trying to do that?
I shared a lot. I shared, everything I knew at the time. Billy Lineberger got me involved in that. He kept, and actually that goes way back. We started those videos way back in like Stalker Banshee days when we started them.
Yeah, they're on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
You can find them.
Yeah.
Go to the PRC website.
Yeah.
We had we sold them as VHSs. We had a top secret video club.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that, back then that was before DVDs when we started all that. And anyway, but Billy Lineberger came to me. He had a production company and he raced go-karts, and he was like, we need to do these videos and blah, blah, blah. Well, something that people don't know about me, and I know you wanted to say this at the end, but when I was young, I really all the way up to about the time we started the videos, is I had a speech impediment. Like when I was at school, I had like, I guess you'd call it anxiety, but if I had to get up in front of somebody and speak, I couldn't do it. I mean, I went to speech classes and I would stutter and all kind of stuff. And he came to me wanting me to do that, and I'm like, I can't do that. Well, he kept pushing, and we finally made a video. And kind of like y'all said, this, we'll just record it, and then I'll go edit it, and I'll make you look good. So y'all better make me look good. But anyway, he started that, and again, that was during a different time. But at one time, we had over 2,000 subscribers to that video club, and every time we came out with a new video, we would send them the video. They paid for it, of course, and then whatever products we put in the video would sell. Like we sold a ton of Longacre products. We taught people how to do scaling. We taught them how to do tire temperatures, and you name it. But that it was a great time. But since then, I've had some people that have came up to me and told me that how much they learned from those videos. I mean, I've had a couple of Winston Cup crew chiefs, like Chad Johnson, for instance, Matt McCall.
Really?
Their crew. Chad Johnson told me to my face when his kids started racing wing karts. He told me straight up. He said, "I learned the basics of front end geometry from your videos." And I didn't know what to say. I'm like, really? and then just a couple weeks ago, y'all had Mike Knuckles on. He was talking about how he learned the basis of his stuff from us. I mean, I don't know that I believe all that, but he gave us credit for it. But to know, to hear some of these guys come back and say that, that they learned something from our video that they've, have used in their racing career and continue to use and build upon. I mean, it's just a building block. That's very humbling. It really is.
Well, you better wipe the internet and re-release the series because people are probably about to go look for those now.
Those things are old. The information's still valid. I mean, it's it's old videos and it's old karts and all, but it's still valid. And then we got involved with Todd Godwin, and which he wrote his own books, but I think he learned and put. I mean, he's an engineer, of course, but we helped him put it into karting language. He wrote the books. He was able to sell lots of books, and then also Frank Ash. Frank Ash is doing the same thing. So, both of them are doing well. Not that we did anything, but added a little piece to what they've done there. So,
yeah,
sure, just a little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so,
but it was, those times were awesome. And I don't. Again, you'd have to do one now about tires. I don't think they'd buy them.
Yeah. And so, something that you had talked about when you had started Phantom was repeatability and being able to be consistent. That was something huge for you. And so, something that you had incorporated into karting that really wasn't on the scene at the time was the CNC welding, and then eventually doing the CNC bending to where it was a perfect bend every single time, and it welded it consistently because that's what you're looking for in a go-kart. You want your first go-kart to be as good as the last go-kart you put out. So, what went into incorporating that into your operation?
A lot of money and a lot of sleepless nights. We did our first robot in '97. We moved into this building in '97, and shortly after that, we put in a robot because we wouldn't fit in our old building. We couldn't keep up, and I knew, we're located here in NASCAR country. Being able to keep quality staff at that time, especially to keep them building go-karts instead of going and building, cup cars was nearly impossible. So I knew that I had to do something, because I was tired of welding parts, and I knew that, standing there welding them things all day, that's hard. So we brought in the robots the first robot in '97, and the challenges of the robot is a robot is deaf, dumb, blind, and stupid. It's gonna come down and make the weld that you program it to make, whether your joint is there or not.
Yeah.
So what it forces you to do, and they told me this before I ever bought the robot, is the robot forces everything that feeds it to be better. So our bending had to get better, our notching had to get better, all of that had to get better in order for that robot to work. Our fixturing had to get better. We had to build better fixtures. It has to be repeatable. The tolerance of a weld is like 30 thousandths. That joint has to be within 30 thousandths of location and fit, or it won't work. You have problems. So, it made everything get better. So, and like I said, we did that part of the way through the Banshee era. So, part of the Banshees were welded by hand. The second part of them were made on a robot.
That's pretty cool. That's such a big thing is consistency. That's what you look for. You don't want to buy a go-kart, kind of like what you're talking about with the Triton, kind of rotating through chassis. You don't want to buy one go-kart and it not be good, and it be good, and then the next one not be good. That repeatability is what helps sell.
Yeah. So you've not seen this. This is our first one here. We don't use it as much as we used to. Oh, you can't see on this side.
So that's the first welding robot right there.
Yeah, we use it some. We don't do as much. We still do some small components. Like I think the last thing we did on this is we made some parts for Longhorn. But we did. We used to have chassis fixtures on this side, two sides. That's three stations. Had a chassis fixture on each side, and then small fixture in front. We still weld some of the Nerf bars on it, seat struts, rear bumpers, things like that. Weld on it. We got another one. I think it's around 2012, 13. This one here is bigger. This is what we do the chassis on now.
That's cool.
There's a Recon Minicon picture up there.
Really?
Yep.
It's pretty
So
cool.
a few of the pieces are off of it, but this robot's bigger, it's fully coordinated. It will actually the fixture will rotate as it's welding, so it has 7 coordinated axes.
Oh wow.
That's a lot.
I think the
That
biggest
programming has to be fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing that from some of my mechanical engineering classes. Oof.
Yeah, when I was
Yeah.
a machinist and I was a vertical mill CNC, and the most I dealt with was 4, and that was a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen the before this, the most axes that I've seen was 5.
There's some robots that's 9, 10, 12 axis.
That's
In some applications, you have one robot that presents to another robot. So you got
Right.
one robot that holds it, one that welds it. But this is the other side. This is some stuff we do. This stuff we do for Longhorn here.
Yeah.
Wow.
We will get into that in a second.
Yep. And then that's what's coming next. I ain't gonna show you much now.
That's the new one.
Uh-oh.
That's yeah, there we go.
And then over here, we just added this. This is our cube cutter. This is a CNC cube cutter. So now this cuts all the features like this. Cuts all the cut tubes. Cuts all the copes, holes, everything from straight. Here's a big tube, but
That's cool.
But it cuts them like this part right here. You see that one's coped on both ends.
Yeah.
And then we'll orient it into the. Oh, this bender is 9 axis. You're talking about axis. This one's 9 axis.
Really?
It's all CNC stack tooling. So basically, you orient your copes, and then when it comes out of the bender, it's ready to fit up. Walk back over here. Like these notchers right here, we don't use them anymore.
That's old school, huh?
Yeah, I mean we'll use them if we have to fix something, but production wise, we don't. You can see like these tubes right here, everything's notched and ready to go. Fits up. All these are ready. Got recons, minicons, front axles, inner rails.
Yeah, I need to I just need to take either a road trip or book a flight and just
I've taken a picture in front of the building. This is awesome, and I'm getting to see inside now.
Yeah.
Well, you've got. I mean, now once the stuff makes it to production, we're basically glorified material handlers now. We bring the material in, we load it into the CNC tube cutter. It cuts all the features in it, so we just load it in, hit the button. After it cuts it there, we move it over to the bender over here. It bends it. All the features are already in it. And then we move it over again. We're just lug it around, and we take it over to the robot. We load it in the robot, and it welds.
I think that's what you call efficiency right there, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just the way we choose to do it. You know, I mean, there's an argument against all that. You know, it's out there, and people want to do it that way, and that's fine. But we also have this piece right here. You know what a hexagon cube scanner is?
I couldn't say I do.
No idea.
This right here is a tube scanner. Basically, you create a tube. We create a tube in that bender. Then after it's bent, you load the program. You can import it into the software here for this, and it scans it with this fork right here.
Mhm.
Scan it, and then it tells you whether it'll check whether it's right or wrong, different, you know, whatever's off, angles, length of bends, LRAs, XYZs, whatever.
Really?
Then it will correct the bender. It will do the corrections and send it back to the bender, and it will correct.
Huh.
That's cool. So it's like a
Wow.
self QC thing.
yeah.
But see,
That's awesome.
that's all stuff that you have to have all that.
So once you start down the rabbit hole, it's kind of endless.
It's endless. It's endless. And then, you know, we're continually adding pieces, and, you know, I mean, but now also because, you know, all this stuff all this equipment was purchased and for use to build go-karts. You know, we're now doing other stuff, but, you know, we can talk about that later, but, you know, it's just like dyno cams, you know, they're one of the largest, have the most technical, you know, cam grinders on the planet. And they started out grinding go-kart cams. You know, same thing here. You know, we took this technology, and, you know, we're now doing, or since 2012, we've done work for the most of the Cup teams, which we lost the Cup work because of the next gen, but we still do Xfinity truck. We do work for them because they don't have the equipment that we have, and this equipment was mainly to serve karting.
Yeah, I mean that just being good business right there, good businessman, just figuring out different ways to keep money flowing in.
Yep. But it all boils back to your original question. I don't mean to sidestep it, but you
Oh, no,
asked
you're
about
good.
the robot. You asked about the robot. That was the first piece, and it caused all this other stuff to get better.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Mr. Harrill, we've been on a journey learning through the history book of PRC, but to the newest chapter being written, in addition to the continued history of PRC, the outlaw carts. What piqued your interest, and how was it launching that first outlaw cart that had the PRC logo on it?
Well, the reason the first reason I went to the outlaw carts was to run our open stuff. Is in like 2014, 2013, 2014, right in there. I'd got over into I'd kind of got out of the clone stuff and all of the regular go karts, and I'd started running some UAS, and that's what the flat carts. And
that Jawa go kart, that was nasty.
Yeah.
That was a nasty go kart right there. I'll tell you that. We still talk about that.
That was fun. We had fun there for a little bit, but then I don't know that I guess that didn't go where I thought it would go. So then I learned about, which, I mean, Millbridge is only 5 miles from here, but they had their Speed 51 race in the fall of, I guess it'd be 20. I need to see what year it is, because I went over there and I rode in, and I mean, it was a big event. They had a big event, Speed 51 race, and it was big, and they had the 500s and 550s out there running, and I mean, it was a big show. And we I was trailing off from the UAS because that hadn't went where I thought it would. So I said, well, I'll try this. This is right here 5 miles from the house. That's a big old event. There was I think there was 90 opens in that one class that year. And I said, I need to get in on this, not even thinking about the box stock stuff. So I started working on an open, and went over there and got Nick Kaufman to drive it. Actually, we went back the following year, which, I mean, it wasn't the first race. We spent the whole part of the next year getting our brains kicked in. But we went back to the next Speed 51 and with Nick, and we won it, which was pretty shocking. And well, the open division started kind of dying off, and they started going to whatever. But while I was there, I noticed the box stock program, and the box stock program was pretty small. I mean, it's still small, but at that time it was only a handful of cars in each class. It wasn't a ton, but there was some. But it looked pretty neat. And I said, well, shoot, we got flat carts, just put a cage on them. They just slick tires. So we started in with that, and I mean, it worked pretty good. The box stock program started growing, and it's right here in our backyard. And again, it's still small because I say small. It's small compared to flat carts being nationwide. The wing carts are kind of regional. You got pockets of it. Yeah. So overall, this is nowhere near the numbers, but for here at Millbridge, it's a good program, and it has picked up in a few other areas, and so we developed, we finished developing the Minicon version of the wing cart, and it runs good. People like it. We're here, we can service it. The box stock program started growing. They made a few changes. I hope to think that our involvement helped it grow some more, and it's become pretty good. But like I say, it's still small in comparison to the other black car stuff.
And one thing I have to ask here is you have one of the most unique two top roll bars on not only the wing car, but it was also the champ car. What we talked to James. It was kind of he says is along the lines of you could bend it with the tube bender. But what was there any other things? Was there any other ideas behind it?
Well, we believe it's stronger. The big radius. Radiuses are stronger than straights. We felt like we're stronger. Plus, throughout the years, I've always tried to do things to make our product stand out. You know, like I wanted to make our carts, when they went around the racetrack, I wanted to be able to see them. I want to be able to tell the difference. And that was one thing. We did that first of all with the champs that we built for a while, and then whenever we did the wing carts, we kind of brought the same thing over. We were, I think, one of the first to kind of put a champ style cage onto a wing cart. When I say champ style, has the rear hoop and the two down tubes.
Mm-hmm.
Before us, and really there's still a lot that still do, like SKEs and QRCs are still the old midget style where you have a right side and a left side rail. We did it different because I wanted it to look different, and plus it allowed us to get the wing in a different spot too. So that worked out. But yes, probably mainly for looks is the main thing. But I think it is stronger.
Yeah, definitely. I would never be able to miss a Phantom Champ card on the racetrack.
Yeah.
So
they look like school buses.
So you had mentioned doing some work for Longhorn as well as dating back to 2012 for the NASCAR Cup teams, but now with the next gen and the homology about it, more
That's
so
a
going
mouthful.
toward.
Yeah, it is a mouthful.
Yeah. More so geared towards the truck series and the Xfinity series. What are some of those endeavors?
Back in 2012, some of the guys that worked on the floor at Hendrick Motorsports reached out to me. They were having trouble with some of the parts they were building and they were getting built, to hang the bodies especially. And they asked if we could build them, and I said, yeah. I said we can make the stuff. I said, but it's whether Hendricks is going to buy from us. I said that's the problem. Hendricks is a big company, and I said they're not going to want to buy from us. And the couple of the guys on the floor, they told us, they said if you can make it, we'll get them to buy it. I said okay. So I did. I worked and made some stuff, and they liked it, and they held true to their word. They got the purchasing departments to buy them, and we started making some stuff, and for Hendricks, and that, there was some other equipment, like we bought another bender back there, and I told him, I said, I can make these better if I have to buy another piece of equipment. I said, but I need to know, are y'all going to continue to buy from us? And they're like, sure. So, they kind of made me feel like it was going to be a good investment. So I bought another bender to run that stuff. And at one time we were making all the bumpers, fronts, rears, uppers, lowers, splitter bars. We were making them for every Cup team except for Penske cars. They wouldn't buy from us, but
Wow.
everybody else were making those. That was good. And then we still do the biggest majority of Xfinity truck, ARCA, stuff like that. We still do a good many of those.
Wow, that's great.
But,
I did not know that. I knew. Oh, go ahead.
Of course, we lost everything with the next gen with the Cup because we didn't get any of that.
And so when did you start doing with Longhorn?
Steve actually came in. He came in here when he was in the process of purchasing Longhorn from Justin, and some mutual friends or somebody who knew us. They called and said, "Hey, would you be interested in talking to this guy?" And he brought him in. And he had actually bought property that's almost across the street from us. And he came in and he saw what we were doing, and he was telling me what he was going to do. And he told me what he wanted to do and his plan for the company and all this, that, and the other. And he left. I said, I said, got wasting my time. I said, you're not going to do this. So in the weeks coming up, he touched base with me a couple more times. Well, whatever. So, and I kind of, one of the conversations, I kind of said, well, I don't know. Kind of led him to believe that I didn't really think he was going to come through on all this because, again, at this point in time, he hadn't really made the purchase. He was telling me that all this was going to happen and blah blah blah. Talks cheap, and I kind of told him that. Well, he goes home and writes out a handwritten contract on a piece of paper. Comes back, hands to me. He said, "You don't seem to believe me." He said, "Here." He said, "This might not mean nothing." He said, "But I wrote this out." Wrote it out. I read it. I'm like, okay. I said, okay, whatever you say. And but Steve and I have become pretty good friends. You know, we do a lot of work for them now. We some stuff we do complete components, welded and ready to go for them, and then some of the stuff we do about all their bending and fitting now. But most of the stuff that's on the car that's bent, we do it with the process I just showed you back there. And when he ended up moving the company, he bought the company. He did everything he said he was going to. He really did, and he moved the company across the street over here, and it's been a great deal for both of us. Steve and I have become pretty good friends. He's actually called me on many occasions because he knows, you know, I've been down a lot of roads with racing in general, and sometimes he'll call me up. He'll say, "Hey, I need some advice. Here's what's going on. What do you think?" And it's pretty gratifying to have somebody that's in his position that's, hey, you know, asking me a question. So
Sure.
But they've really got it rocking and rolling. They're doing a good job.
Absolutely.
We took them when he bought the company. They were doing about a car a week, and now they're doing about a car a day.
Jeez.
Wow.
Wow.
Talk about production.
Yeah, but see that they focus, but being able to let us take on what we're doing allowed them to just focus on welding the cars up. Because see, whenever we supply them with the stuff, they're ready to weld.
Yeah.
So that's helped a lot, and I think we've helped them with their. Well, I think we've helped them with their quality and stuff too. You know, with consistency, because you know I've been pretty transparent with him about the stuff we've learned to make stuff consistent, and he's listened. He's listened, and it's been great working with him and Kevin Rumley and all those guys over there. They do a good job.
Got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I did have to call him and ask him. I said, "Hey," I said, "I'm gonna do this podcast." I said, "Can I talk about this?" And he's like, "By all means, yeah, we want." So
That's awesome.
So I know you had hinted at it and didn't let us see a whole lot of it. But Mr. Harrill, if you're willing to talk about it any, if there is a new flat cart being tested currently, how are the tests looking, and is there a specific timeline of when this may be making its debut?
there definitely is a new cart in the works. Been in the works for a while. Timeline, I'm not setting a definite timeline because several people were wanting us to have it done by the end of last year, and we didn't do it. You know, we're continuing on with testing. I just really haven't been happy. Testing is kind of with the way racing is now, it's challenging. It's not as simple as it once was. And then, you know, back in the day, whenever Todd and I could just test by ourselves, it was, you know, that was a lot more straightforward than what we go through today. So, but yeah, we are working. We've got made a lot of prototypes, and so we're hoping that plans are is sometime in the fall, late summer, fall. We're hoping to have something done, but I'm not going to release it until I'm happy with it. So I'm not setting a definite time.
Now, do we have any names in the works? Is that any? Has it been any consideration?
Yes and no. My graphics guys, they're actually they worked on some stuff, but I'll be honest with you, what they're working on is going to get trashed because I'm not going to use that either. I usually wait till the last to come up with a name, and usually the way a lot of my names have came up. I mean, we did the name and deal a couple of different times, but some of the better names that we've come up with in the months or weeks leading up to the release, I'll actually see or hear something, and it'll hit me. It's just like, that's it.
Yeah, it's like a click.
It
just clicks.
Yeah. And that happened 2 weeks ago. So you'll see. You'll see whenever it comes. But
All right.
here, you want to know how much we're testing? This is a portion of them right here. That's only
Holy cow.
Wow.
that's prototypes that didn't work.
Man.
Prototypes that didn't make the cut. Now, I'm sure you remember the recon release video.
Okay, that's what I was gonna bring up. There was a release video. You cut up like 100 chassis, and it was
I do
literally just a
remember that.
time lapse
Yep.
of you chopping chassis up.
That was real. And I mean, honestly, I think we can do that again. But I don't know. I've considered like doing something along those lines, but so many haters out there now that want to jump on something like that. So I don't know. We may not, but I'm saving them. You've seen the pile of them there, and that's and if I get back the rest of them that's scattered out around different places, it'll be about 2 or 3 times that many.
Oh God.
Now, are there any prototypes that you do like?
Yeah, I think the stuff we're riding right now is not bad. I think it's not bad. It's the reality of now, and when I say this again, there people's gonna heckle it, but I don't think that where karting is at a chassis design and where karting is at right now. I don't know that there is any all out available speed to be gotten. Aside from something about the sport changing, I don't know that we can actually just come up with something that's just going to be faster. I don't know that there's actual speed there. The thing that we're focusing on this time, I alluded to it on some of the facts. We talked about that line of karts up there, the history wall up there, is we're going after drivability. I think we need to, with our last 2 karts, I think we need to have something that's more user friendly, more of the driving style of the trike. That's what we're going after.
Okay.
The speed is something that the racers are going to have to come up with. They're going to get that at the racetrack, and it's no secret that Harrill Wiggins hadn't been at the racetrack like he was for so many years, and some people think I've given up. Some people, whatever. Have I pulled back? Yes, I did pull back. I mean, I'm old enough that I've earned that, but a lot of it is desire, and a lot of it is just the way the sport is headed. I told you before we started this deal that we're not going to chase that rabbit. During this podcast, if you want to flush that rabbit out later, we'll flush it out later. But I did voluntarily kind of pull back because I just got tired of seeing it. I got tired of watching it and seeing what's going on. But going forward here, we've got some plans in place. I mean, as y'all know, when I say we, I'm talking family. And this is you heard it here first, stuff. As y'all know, my daughter Brittany, she was pretty in everybody's face for a while in our YouTube videos and all that stuff. But she's grown up, and she got her a good education. She's in the medical industry and all that. But since a young age, she has always had the desire to run this company. And I've always told her, I said, Brittany, I said, karting is a company. I said, Phantom, and especially, I said, it's going to be nigh on impossible for a female or you to run that company on your own. I said, I just don't, it's going to be hard. I said, the racers are not going to listen to you. I said, you're going to have to be so dependent on employees, who you have around you. I said, you need to go get you an education. And so she did. She's got 3 degrees. She's got master degrees. She's got nursing degrees. She's got, she's set. But I told her, I said, now if God sends you somebody that you can partner with, a husband, possible. I said, but by yourself, I don't think you can. I don't think you need to set your heart. Now we're backing up. This is back when she's in high school. This is back when she's starting college. We had that conversation. Well, it looks like God showed up. I guess y'all saw she got married some time ago.
Yes.
You married Trey Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Trey, even though he was never rode a Phantom, he's never been on a Phantom. He married Phantom's daughter.
He married Wiggins.
He married Wiggins. So, but Trey has an engineering degree, and he worked for some different measurement companies. He's been in racing. He's a really smart individual. He's got a lot of education that I don't have. he was working, and I say was because as of 3 weeks ago, he's now working at Phantom. But he was working at GM Performance. He was working down the Hendrick Complex. Plans are for he and Brittany to kind of in the future, now not tomorrow, but again, back to Brittany's dream, back to the whole thing is, that one day I can have someone I can pass this off to. So we're going to, that's what's in the works. That now I'm not saying that Harrill Wiggins is disappearing tomorrow. That's not the case. I'm still only 54 years old. But a lot of the stuff, the grind, the racetrack grind, that's going to be them. And I think Trey and Brittany together can do a great job along with the rest of our staff. The rest of our staff is still here. Tony and James and Chris and all those guys are still here. They're all on board. They know what's going on. I think it's really positive.
For sure.
Trey brings a lot to the table that I don't have. And again, I'm jumping ahead, but a lot of the stuff, one of your last questions that you said you might ask was what people don't know about me is I don't have hardly any education. I'm a high school dropout. I did go back and get my diploma through correspondence courses. That was back before internet. But for all practical purposes, I'm a high school dropout. I went to work. Now, by the time I was old enough to graduate, I was well on my way to being successful. And I made it. I'm not condoning anybody from dropping out of school. But full circle, Trey brings a lot to the table that I don't have. I mean, I've made it work and I figured out. And Trey went home about a week after he worked here, and he told his wife, my daughter Brittany, he said, your dad should get an honorary engineering degree. He said, because he's one of the smartest men I've been around. But I didn't get that education. So anyway, I'm excited about that. I think Trey has the personality. I know Brittany has the drive. I mean, Brittany has her dad's drive. She has my drive. And so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if I should have said that on this podcast, but that's, I think this is a family. There's a lot of customers I hope that's going to join, that's going to listen into this, that's been with us a long time. I hope they can respect what we just said, because
You got 5 of them right here.
Well, hopefully it can go for another generation. And I do apologize for the past several years of my pulling back, but I was tired. I was really tired. And so anyway, that's it. Trey's involved in this testing. He has been involved for a good while. He and Brittany have dated for several years now. They've been engaged for almost 2. So I look for big things. So we'll see.
Well, man, your company's been a big part of me and my dad's life for 2/3 of my life. So, I mean, you got me hooked. I'm loyal to Phantom, and I'll probably be loyal till I hang the helmet up.
Yeah, for sure. We've the longest thing I've ever, like what Chance said, the majority of my career has also been on Phantom. So hearing that for it to keep going is definitely puts a
Great
smile
news.
on my face for sure, and that's awesome.
There's been a time. I mean, I can't lie. There was a time over the last couple years that my wife and I were trying to figure out an exit strategy. Because we didn't know what was going to happen. I had a couple of guys, and I'm not going to call their names. If they listen, they'll know. But I had a couple of guys come to me, and they wanted to come in and do some stuff, and I didn't, for the simple fact that I was holding out hope that God would put something together for Brittany, and he did. Now, it's yet to be seen what will happen, but I think it's got high hopes. And understand, I'm not going away tomorrow. I just want to be able to start this transition while I'm still able to make them as the best I can.
Show them the Phantom way, and then let them grow it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we don't have to stay on it for a sec. I just wanted to say something was, what you went through with being tired. That's it goes back to what you said of needing an off season again. That is, I've talked to countless people that said that, they're getting burnt, and it's a big common thing. There's no off season. You miss everything. You miss everything to race go-karts, and it's 48 to 50 weekends a year, and if you miss a couple races, you might as well sell it all because it's going to take twice as much work to get back going again. So that's just something I feel like definitely we have to figure something out with that. But you know, it's we're so deep into it. It's almost like what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's that rabbit we need to run another day. But
Yeah.
you're exactly right. But I mean, you consider, for 35 plus years, I work here 4 or 5 days a week, and then I chase them all weekend. So that's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
A lot of people come home, and in the afternoon, they want to do their hobby. They want to call and talk about it. The last thing I want to do is talk about it. And, it got heavy. And then, as long as the sport was growing, and I seen a bright future, I didn't have as much problem getting the drive to get up and go and do it. But as the future looked like it was diminishing, it got harder and harder and harder. So I got tired. Now, we say all this, karting is still a wonderful.
It's still an addiction. It's an addiction to everybody.
It is. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be changed. Most of it's probably never going to be changed. But karting is still a viable sport. It's a viable business. Phantom is still a profitable company. I'd say there's some people out there that think I'm starving to death. Much to the contrary. I mean, yes, it's partly due to some of this other stuff we're doing, but karting is still our biggest side, and it always will be. But again, I think the changes we just talked about are going to be good.
For sure. Very excited to see
Absolutely.
what the future brings with Phantom.
Since you took a little hiatus from the track, have you picked up any hobbies on the weekends?
Yeah, I fish a lot.
There you go.
It seems to be a common thing.
I fish a lot. I like, I mean, again, when I say this, I know this sounds bad, but just the nature of the business and how I have run the business for 35 years, I wanted to just get away from people, because people at times they wear me out, and so I took up fishing, and I enjoy it. So, but yeah, that's been good for me.
You got your big nice boat.
It's all right. I got a 20-foot little aluminum boat that I like to striper fish. Problem is, I live in the wrong state. But I do like striper fish and crappie fish.
Hey, like they say, no one's ever been mad out in the water catching fish.
Well, sometimes you get aggravated when you don't catch fish. And then they got all this, of course, I got to buy all this new technology, all this new forward-facing sonar. Now you get to see all the fish that's there and won't bite. That's
Some
fun.
live scope. Got to get the live scope.
Oh, yeah.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, Hootie Thibodeau can probably say that's a lie. You can be mad on the water.
Yeah. He'd be the first one.
It happens. But I tell you this, I do not enter tournaments. And the reason I don't is because this is so competitive. And I tell people, they'll say, "Well, you go fish this tournament," and I've entered like one or two, and I don't even, I could care less how I do, because I don't want to take the fun out of it. I just want to go fish.
Yeah.
I don't want to be competitive.
For sure. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I know a couple of people who have done the exact same thing, got out of kart and went to fishing and didn't burn themselves out with the tournament. So just go have fun out in the water and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. I went down to fish with Jeremy Mullinax here a few weeks ago or months ago. That was fun. He's an old go-kart racer from down in Georgia, and I saw he was in the striper fish, and I actually had a little guide service. I called him up and, "Hey, you take me fishing?" He's like, "Oh man, yeah, come on." And we rode around and reminisced about go-kart racing while we caught fish, and he done a good job. We caught some good fish.
Yeah, for sure. But we have this little rapid fire segment. It's 5 questions. You answer whatever you think. So let's get into it. First question: favorite food?
Cool. Just good old home cooking, beans and taters and meat.
There you go.
I like Japanese, but just home cooking is the best.
Nothing beats a home cooked meal for sure.
We go from home cooking to Japanese.
Japanese is, my wife likes it, and it's
Oh.
kind of fun to watch them cook and all. But my favorite is just home cooked meals. So,
Nothing wrong with
For
that.
sure. Favorite racetrack?
favorite racetrack, I'm gonna have to say Carteret County Speedway.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
because was different. It was, I mean, it's gone now. It was different. Bobby put his heart and soul in that. I mean, I say it's gone. It's a car track now. I'm talking Carteret County go-kart track. It was, he put on some fun events down there. He was a used car salesman, track promoter. He would screw your eyes out if you let him, but he put on a whale of a show every time he opened the gate, and he had a wonderful facility.
So the next one would be favorite sport to watch outside of racing.
Cool. I don't know that I have one. Outside of racing, I mean, I watch a lot of dirt track racing now, since a lot of late models and stuff, because I think they put on a good show.
Mhm.
But outside of that, it would probably, I don't know. I'm not into the ball sports. I don't.
No, okay.
I'm not into that. So sticking balls. I mean, if you remember, many years ago, I had this shirt that said "No motor, no sport."
Yeah.
I do remember that one.
Yeah.
Motor sports. Motor racing is the only true sport. Everything else is a game.
There you
go. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Mountains. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I totally zoned out. So I just you
Mountains.
answered quick. I was like, all right, sorry.
I don't care nothing about the beach.
Yeah. And then if you had to pick one race out of the catalog of races that you've been a part of, what would be probably your most favorite win?
Region Stratton 300.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the one to win back in the gap.
Yeah, that was big. The big deals. I liked our outlaw win over there with Nick, but pride. I would have to say Region Stratton 300 with Jason Petty.
Yeah.
We come so close so many times there at the end. There was a lot of years we went down there and they just cleaned our butts. But then we kind of got it figured out. And there was the last 3 years we really should have won the last three and managed to end up winning the very last one. I like to say that we shut it down because they didn't run it after that. Actually, there's the body off the cart right there.
Really?
That's
Cool.
That's Wayne Poole's body there. That's the last body Wayne Poole had. And then
Really?
that's the body off the last. Well, Jason won on the 300. They're still got the tire marks and everything on it. V2 oil.
That's
That's Wayne's body there. I think about Phil. I'm not sure. That might have been the one body he had on when he won
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. I'm not
Nice.
positive. I know that's one of his old.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Briggs Stratton 300. That win was good. That was special with Jason and I and Phil. Those were great times racing with those guys. Tractor boy.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Awesome.
And again, I don't want to run this rabbit, but pavement racing died because they didn't want to run. They didn't want to do the tires. They didn't want to do pavement. They want to do dirt. Is that right? Am I true there?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have pavement racing around here. I just kind of kept up with it in the magazines and stuff.
But most people they didn't want to do the pavement because one reason or another. But yet nowadays they go dirt racing, and by the time they get the track ready to qualify, it's just like pavement. So they're actually pavement racing. But think about this: the racer has to go pave the racetrack every race. They have to go run a groove in that's like pavement before they'll actually run on it. So they actually go and pave the track every week.
That's probably the best point I've heard.
Yeah.
I've never heard that point right there. That's damn good.
But am I wrong?
No, you're
No, that's the
100%
best way you
right.
could've
We actually
put it.
talked about this before on a podcast of you want to cut practice short, but you can't because you got to get the track ran in, and it's
Yep.
yeah, this just
Yeah, you got to go repave it before every qualifying session. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. Anyway, let's move on. Move on.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to how about, and you can break this down into different eras or different categories, but who would you say is the best kart racer of all time in Mr. Harrill Wiggins' opinion?
Well, I don't want to say the best kart racer of all time because I didn't see the people before me. I mean, I know before our era. I mean, the only one that I feel like I can really cast judgment on is one who I felt like is best from our era. I mean, I know before us, the Charlie Soxes and the Lynn Haddocks and
Mhm.
Joey Lenotti's and the whole plethora that paved the roads that we ride on. Those were great people. Robin Bradshaw, I will say, I think Robin Bradshaw was probably one of the best of his. And again, I didn't get to see a lot of it, but he was the best all around racer, driver, mechanic, whatever. But I'm going to slide him back in the era before us, because again, I didn't get to see everything, but I have utmost respect for him. But out of our era, I'm going to have to say it's Todd Miller.
Yeah.
Todd
for
Miller.
sure.
That's a name right there. It's just some guy. Yeah.
It's just some guy.
And the reason I'm picking him is because I got to see all that. I think, I was there. I got to see it. And I hope I was part of a lot of it. But, the things he did, a lot of people forget that, they think about all the dirt stuff he won, but he won the Briggs and Stratton 300 3 times.
Yeah.
He won a lot of pavement races. He won some Gold Cup stuff. He didn't just do dirt. He did other stuff. He's engine builder. I watched some of the things that he did on the racetrack, and I think he's all well rounded. On the track, off the track, I'd have to say him. I mean, there's some others that probably would rival him just in the seat, but I think total package is Todd.
Yeah, I would.
That's
I
awesome.
could definitely agree with you. I mean, having, the, if not the, one of the best motors you put out, one of the best careers stat wise, just yeah, like you said, whole package is
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, quick Wayne Poole story. Wayne Poole, Todd Miller story. They were at Jasper, Florida, Crossroads. Todd was coming out of the seat, but yet he was still able to race some. This was many years ago, of course, when Wayne was alive. Wayne was driving, and they would run limited. Nationals were big show and all that, big events. And first day they go out, and Wayne's not running. They're not running as good as they should. I don't remember where he finished. I mean, he didn't run bad, but he didn't win. He was probably around 5th, 6th, 7th. I don't know, right in there somewhere. Probably had a field of 50 limiteds. I don't know, it's a big class. We go walking over there, myself and Tony Belt. We go walking up in the pit. Well, Todd's got a temper. All right, he's never been around. He's got a temper. So he's fussing Wayne out by whatever. And Todd gets into one of his throwing fits. As we're walking up, he slings his air gauge.
Uh-oh.
Well, the air gauge wraps around the tent pole. Easy up tent. When it flings around the tent pole, it hits Tony Belt right in the chest. Wham! Todd walks off. Tony looks at Wayne. He says, "Now take that." Todd hollers back at Wayne. He said, "You're pushing the buggy tomorrow. I'm driving."
Cool.
I looked at Wayne. I said, "You all right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm all right." So the next day, sure enough, Wayne pushed the buggy and Todd drove. Do I need to tell you what happened?
What happened?
Todd won. He went out there and he did everything that he told Wayne to do. Well, I mean, now Wayne was a good driver. Don't get me wrong. Wayne was awesome, and Todd was teaching Wayne, and Wayne was young and all that. But on that day, that's the story. That's how it went down.
That's
And,
funny.
That's funny.
those two loved each other like nobody's business. But Todd Miller can pitch a fit beside the racetrack, but he's one of the few that he can tell you, "You're going to push the buggy and I'm going to drive the car and show you how to do it." He did.
That's awesome.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man, and we are gonna end it off with anyone you'd like to thank from over the years.
Just all the loyal customers, like yourself, the ones that, y'all said y'all were Phantom for life, Phantom all this time, that's the ones, first, probably, well, let me back up. Before that, first and foremost, my Lord and Savior, because without him, I could not do any of this. He's empowered me to do more than I've ever thought I could ever do. And obviously he's putting the pieces together for more. My family, my wife, I didn't kind of skipped over. We got in the beginning, back back when we first got married, first moved up here, there was a time, you know, when I told you that we were struggling, we were trying to get the offset, we're going from the offset or going from the straight rail to the offsets. There was some times when she worked at Duke Power, when she would actually have to take her paycheck and pay my one or two employees because I wasn't making ends meet. And, you know, but, you know, she sacrificed a lot. She's missed a lot of, you know, my family missed a lot with me traveling through the years, but yet my family stayed together. You know, they've been with me the whole time. They supported me. My employees, I've had some great employees. I've had two 20+ year employees that have retired from here. One was about 23 years. One was 27 years. That's been great. You know, the dedicated customers, you know, that like yourselves, you know, that's what has mean the most. The ones that have stuck with me, you know, whenever I needed help, you know, there's been those that have been with me, you know, when I needed it, because, you know, you've got givers and you've got takers. You know, the takers are going to take what they can take and they're going to leave when they can't get nothing else. But when the givers are the ones that have made the difference. And there's a plethora of those out there that God has put in my life, and that have helped me build this business of what it is. And there's no way I could ever name them all. But if you've been on a Phantom for a long time and you take pride in wearing your PRC hat and saying that you rode a Phantom, that's for you. Thank you.
Fair.
Yeah.
We greatly appreciate you coming, cut
Yeah.
out some time.
Yeah.
This was way more than I could have ever expected. I'll tell you that. This was amazing. You know, really appreciate you giving us a chance. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Hopefully y'all can get it edited down where something you can use. And I do thank you for putting confidence in me to do it. So I think y'all doing a good thing. You know, hopefully at some point, maybe if you want to do another podcast and we'll talk about some of the other rabbits we talked about running out, maybe we can get back together and do that. But
For sure.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harrill, for everything you contributed to this sport. And we can take this out, but I just wanted you to know. I mean, I know you said you've dealt with some burnout, but just thank you for everything you've contributed to this sport, both the technology and equipment, but also the giving back, and even even down to the writing competition you did for the Seraph, the research. I mean, I entered that as a kid, and researching we did on that, just you've given a lot more back than what it seems like a lot of people have. And I think all of us collectively just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
thank you. It's been good. You know, talking about that writing competition with the Seraph, you know, I still have all those essays.
Really?
Really?
I got 'em.
That's pretty cool. Yep.
Got 'em.
Yep.
I don't keep as much stuff as Phil Combs does, but I've got but the one thing that I will say, and if you leave this in there, I wish I had have kept one of every piece of apparel we ever did and did a quilt out of it. Phil has told me so many times that you need to do a quilt out of all your apparel, because I've seen some people do that, and I don't have it all. I wish I did. I don't have it all.
I got one of them on right now. There came to a point to where I started making my own money about 15, 16 years old. And I wanted to get every single shirt after that because I had missed so many before. So after that, I had bought every single, I'd always wait. There was a winter collection and there was a summer collection. And I'd buy them every single time. And every time the winter collection would come out, I'd get the shirt and the hoodie package. And then I'd get the shirt for the summer. And it was just super cool.
We gotta get back into that. We've kind of got off of it. You know, it goes a lot with that burnout, but we're doing this deal now where, you know, everything's made to order. But you know, I don't know. We need to get back to our summer and winter stuff.
For sure. It was definitely special for me because it always came out around my birthday. So whether I was getting it or I was telling somebody, hey, get this my birthday present right here. You want a racing shirt and a racing? You got a million of them. Like, I don't care. I need all of them. I need every single one that comes up. You know,
This is new.
Yeah, that's something we need to get back at. Hey, they put that on Trey and Brittany's list. That can be that.
That's their first order of business right there. Well, Mr. Harrill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know it's
Harrill.
late, but we appreciate it.
Yep.
I understand it's late. I'll
It's
definitely
10
have
o'clock.
to I'll
Go ahead.
definitely have to text you some of those pictures that I talked about earlier.
do that.
Again, I just want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you on the phone. and get you on here.
Anytime. I hope people listen to this. It's 10 o'clock. It's way past the old man's bedtime.
Yes,
Get
sir.
some sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Sleep.
Wow.
All right.
Have a good night, Mr. Harrell. Thank you.
You
Good
too.
one.
Be safe.
Later.